Ravi, it's a red-hot Wednesday night in St. Louis with soaring temperatures in the Gateway City. Perfect for Cardinal fans who flock to Busch Stadium in the heat of a pennant race. The Dodgers are in town and in a race of their own with a brand new weapon. Hanley Ramirez, who is about to make his Dodger debut. Now, these clubs have split the first two games of the series. On Monday, Chad Billingsley returned from the DL. He went 6 innings, allowing just 1 run, striking out 4. Luis Cruz belted a 3-run homer in the second inning, and the Dodgers went on to win 5-3. How about that? The Dodgers winning on a home run. Last night, Adam Wainwright squared off against the Cy Young winner Clayton Kershaw. And it was Wainwright at the plate who helped the Cardinals out with an RBI double in the 5th inning. That scored Descalso. He would also walk in the 6th inning to force Carlos Beltran for his second RBI. Wainwright went 7 1/3. St. Louis won at 8-2. And tonight, it's game 3 of 4. Now to the standings, where the Cardinals are pursuing both the Pirates and the Reds. Cincinnati has won 6 in a row. The Dodgers can gain on the Giants tonight because San Francisco lost to San Diego this afternoon. Hi, everybody. Great to have you with us today here in St. Louis. A very, very hot night for baseball. Dave O'Brien, alongside the 6-time All-Star Nomar Garciaparra. The Dodgers, Nomar, just got real serious about winning the pennant. Hanley Ramirez in the lineup, batting 5th. Does he do it for them?
Well, they made an impact with another Ramirez a few years back, and that's in Manny Ramirez. And Hanley Ramirez is going to help this lineup tremendously. And I played in both the American League and National League. In the National League, you heavily rely on your 1 through 4 to supply your runs, and that's what the Dodgers have done with Kemp and Ethier. Now you add Hanley Ramirez into the mix, and Ethier told me before the game, if he could be half the guy that Manny was, we're going to be just fine. And I think Ethier is going to benefit the most with him in the lineup.
Well, the Dodgers need to help offensively. They are dead last in the majors in home runs. Now, scoring is absolutely no issue for the St. Louis Cardinals. They're number 1 in that category in the National League. Big boppers up and down the lineup, especially when Lance Berkman is in there as well. Anchored, of course, by Beltran and Holiday, both having great years.
Well, when I look at this lineup, it reminds me of an American League lineup. And Carlos Beltran and Matt Holiday are anchoring the middle of that lineup. I mean, Carlos Beltran in the first half of baseball might arguably be in the NL MVP. I mean, to date, he still tops in the NL in both home runs and RBIs. And then the guy we talked about the temperatures being hot here in St. Louis. The one guy who's been heating up since the middle of June, and that is Matt Holiday, hitting well over 400 during that time, has an on-base percentage near 500, and you add that to the rest of this lineup where guys getting on base, it makes it very difficult to pitch to.
On the mound, the Cardinals sending 10-game winner Kyle Loge to the hill. He's 5th in the National League in earned run average. He's up against Aaron Harang for Los Angeles. These two were actually teammates several years ago in Cincinnati. We'll see who comes out on top tonight under the arch in St. Louis, where the ball could absolutely fly in Game 3 of the series. It's coming up next on Wednesday Night Baseball.
We're back in our Baseball Tonight studios. It's John Kruk. I'm Carl Ravitch. Hanley Ramirez set to make his Dodger debut. He kills it at Dodger Stadium, John, a career .388 hitter.
But he's not facing Dodger pitchers.
That's a good point. He's not. Nope. Tonight he's facing the Cardinal pitcher, and that's Kyle Loge, who has really struggled against the Dodgers. All right, so that game coming up in moments. Let's get to a bunch of the other games that have already been played. How would you describe this Marlins decision to move some of their key pieces?
They're trying to save money, maybe to go after other things, I hope, because you can't sell it to a rebuilding thing to the fans now.
Well, Michael Bourne went yard. The Atlanta Braves, for 4 innings in a row, scored 2 runs in each of them. That's Jason Hayward. That one's gone, too. Braves, Tommy Hanson was weird. 7 walks, 7 strikeouts, and 7 steals allowed, and yet Miami scored a run.
1 run.
That doesn't make sense.
Unbelievable.
Very often you score 1 run or fewer when this guy's on the mound.
He's pretty dominant, yeah.
Strasburg looked as good today as he's looked in a while.
Yeah, it's not a fun at bat. And the thing you see, everything's down, 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 but when he really had to, you know, he would climb up about 97 and punch some guys out. But got ahead with the fastball and then try to hit that, Mr. Wright.
At one point, he struck out 5 straight batters between the 3rd and 4th innings, and then he kept on rolling. He used his fastball a lot.
That's 97 at the knees away, and then that's 97 up in the zone at your chest. You're done.
Well, 11 guys were done, 11 strikeouts in 7 innings, only an earned run. Adam LaRoche can also go yard on the low ball. Tim Burdick Yeah, he didn't want to throw it there.
No, center cut 90 is not really a good pitch.
In fact, he didn't want to throw that pitch at all, but the bench said to throw it. So he and Tolley got into it, then he and Dan Wortham got into it. They're frustrated. They've lost 6 in a row.
They should be.
Speaking of frustrated, K-Rod and the Brewer bullpen. PU.
Yeah, they battled back in this one. They took a lead. They had leads the first 2 games. The bullpen blew it. This is just disastrous for the Brewers.
And here come the Phils now. 4 games in a row they've won. Ryan Dempster on the mound, 2-2 game, 6th inning. He gave up a couple of home runs, and that was a good pitch that was driven into right by Jones.
Hey, I think that's why Dempster had the frustration that you saw in the dugout during the game. I mean, he made a good pitch, and he just got beat on it.
6 innings, 3 earns. Was he surprised he came out? He said, yeah. Is that why you threw everything? He said, yeah. Timmy Tom was on the mound for the Giants.
Didn't have much to say.
No, that hasn't gone well for the Giants.
Now, you know, it's funny because when we were up watching games, we said, you know, if the Giants make the playoffs, which, you know, they might, they should, is Lincecum going to be in the rotation?
Yeah, with
that's tough.
Kane and Vogelsong and Bumgarner, you wonder where Timmy fits in.
I know.
Headley went yard in that game. He also made a good defensive play, and the Padres win it. Well, Mike Trout, Torrey Hunter, Mark Trumbo. Albert didn't play today with a bruised elbow, but
Which he probably did.
That's kind of the core of the team, and boy, the core was doing it again today. Hunter had 4 hits. Trout did another home run. Angels beat the Royals 11-6. Yankees were without Alex Rodriguez today. They will be tomorrow and will be for the next maybe 2 months. So he should be back in September. He broke his hand last night when he was hit by a Felix Hernandez pitch. They're going to miss him. How much are they going to miss him with that lineup?
Well, he was.
Call 877-4Vonage or visit Vonage.com today.
ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Mobile Super Motor Oil for long engine life. Well, outside the ballpark at Busch Stadium, Ozzie, Brock, Gibson, Hornsby, great statues here of marvelous Cardinal players. A scalding hot night in the city of St. Louis. But Don Mattingly has to be wearing a broad smile tonight because he's got a brand new player in the heart of his lineup, Hanley Ramirez, 14 home runs. And as Tim Kirkland said earlier tonight, probably lost a bunch of them in Miami. So he might have 20, 22 homers by now. We'll see how he hits at Dodger Stadium, where he has always hit very well, by the way, in the past. Well, let's bring in Tim Kirkland. And Tim, great to have you with us tonight. Are the Dodgers just overjoyed to have Hanley?
Absolutely, they are thrilled. Dee Gordon described it as awesome, awesome, awesome. Tony Gwynn Jr. told me we can't wait to see what our new toy can do. And Andre Ethier told me, he said, this is a great trade for us. He said, remember, 4 years ago, this guy was Matt Kemp. Ramirez has not swung the bat like he can for the last 2.5 years, but the Dodgers are hoping with a change of scenery here and a change of ballpark, he'll become the old Hanley Ramirez. One Marlin told me today that that huge park in Miami cost Ramirez 7 or 8 home runs this year. Ramirez agreed, and then he told me, look, it's going to be free and easy swings from now on, and free and easy generally means great production.
Thanks, Tim. He's been smiling ever since he got here to St. Louis. And batting out of the 5 slot, here's a look at that starting lineup. Bobby Abreu will lead it off, and then Mark Ellis is a great defensive second baseman.
Well, he's often overlooked because we talk about Kemp and Ethier so much, but he is equally as important to have him back in the lineup and off the DL. Like you said, both offensively and defensively. And then Andre Ethier, he's batting .349 with runners scoring position, but he will benefit the most with having a guy like Ramirez hitting behind him. And then A.J. Ellis at the bottom of the lineup in the 8th hole. He leads the majors by seeing over 4 pitches per plate appearance this season.
And draws a lot of walks, and they're up against the right-hander Kyle Loge, the 33-year-old from Chico, California. The right-hander has not given up more than 2 runs in any of his last 6 starts.
And he comes at you with that fastball. He's got a cutter, he's got a slider, curveball, changeup, and he will throw any of those pitches at any spot at any time. Command is key to his game.
Now, what's pretty remarkable is that number we've highlighted. Since July 25th of last year, Kyle Loge has the highest winning percentage in the majors, 16-3, 8.42. How about that?
I don't think people would know that. I mean, they would not think how effective Kyle Loge has been, not just in the major leagues, but in this starting rotations for the defending World Series champ. He has been the top pitcher, if not the ace of this staff.
Well, it's 102 degrees as we get ready for the first pitch. That's the last we'll save the heat for the rest of the night. But it is hot in St. Louis. Bobby Abreu, a .249 hitter with a couple of home runs in the first pitch. Bunted at out in front of the plate. That's a fair ball, and Abreu's going to be out. Tagged out by Molina, and he never left that home plate area.
Well, this is something you don't see Abreu do too often, is that's lay down the bunt early. He's usually taking a pitch, waiting to see, very patient at the plate, especially leading off a game, and he bunts, and that bounces right off the plate and bounces in fair territory. That's the worst feeling as a hitter. You think that it's a foul ball. You think that it hits behind the plate. Even if it hits behind the plate and then bounces fair without hitting anything, it's still a fair ball.
You know, it might be a lousy feeling, but you've got to run. And why aren't you taking off there, Bobby Abreu?
You think that you're in your head, you're thinking it's a foul ball. You're not thinking, oh, that went fair. Even though you see him pointing fair, you're like, no, no. And then maybe you think you get away with it, that, oh, it hit me, or that's why I stopped. And you might sell that to the umpire. And then when it's all said and done, you know, I'm out.
Fair foul. I think you get a run. That one popped up. Foul territory. Molina made a nice effort into the screen. He couldn't get there. It looked like Spider-Man all tangled up. Heck of an effort by the four-time Gold Glover.
Well, he's already made one play unassisted, and here he is just diving, sacrificing the body, going into the net right there. And the other scary part was at the bottom of the net, that wall is just all cement there. No padding on that wall.
He's ticked off because he didn't get it. It would have been a spectacular play. Ellis hitting .263, 3 homers, 13 RBIs. Ellis has been such a good defensive second baseman in his career. He has a .991 career fielding percentage. It's the 3rd highest mark all time at his position, behind Placido Polanco and Dustin Pedroia.
It's hard to believe that he's not won a Golden Glove. I played with Mark Ellis, and he's one of those guys that is just so solid up the middle, makes every play, positions himself extremely well.
Wraps that one hard. Nice play by Freese on a dive behind third. Guns and gets it. 2 down. Ellis got robbed because Freese made a marvelous play.
You know Kyle Lohse is going to come in throwing strikes, and he's not afraid to pitch to contact. And why would you be afraid when you have great plays like David Freese over there at third base, sacrificing, laying out, tough play down the line, then getting up, gathering himself. Notice how he took his time, realizing he has time because that ball was hit so hard, to get in a good throwing position and making a good throw to first base.
That'll send up the center fielder Matt Kemp, hitting .352, 14 homers, 34 RBIs. Numbers down because of the hamstring injuries, but when he is in the lineup, when he's healthy and playing, the Dodgers are 12 games over 500. Talk about a guy who makes an impact. Loops that one foul and out of play.
Well, I talked about at the beginning of the game, in the National League, the importance of those 3-4 hitters in your team. They usually produce the most, from runs batted in to home runs and so forth. Well, I don't think there's anybody in this league that has a bigger impact in the middle of that lineup than Matt Kemp does for this Dodger team.
And of course, tonight, as Ethier swings in the on deck area, we'll talk about Hanley Ramirez and how he affects the guys who hit in front of him. Hanley chomping at the bit to get up there. He's at third base tonight. Don Mattingly gave him the choice where he wanted to start tonight, short or third, and rather surprisingly, he picked third base. That one skips off the mound, but they have him scouted well. Here's the throw on to first base in time to get him. Schumacher with the play. Hit it right back up the middle, and that's where the Cardinal defense was situated. Cardinals coming up with their big bats here in St. Louis in the first inning. St. Louis Cardinal first-year manager Mike Matheny is drawing a lot of raves here in this town for the Cardinal performance to this point. Offensively, they're the best team in the National League. And here's a look at the starting lineup with Rafael Furcal at the top, then John Jay and Matt Holliday. Beltran's hit 22 homers. Craig with 14, and Molina's having the best offensive year of his career.
And I said before this game that this lineup resembles an American League lineup. And Yadier Molina in the 6th hole, look at that, over 350 on-base percentage. And then David Freese, last year's World Series and NLCS MVP, batting in the 7th hole. He too has an on-base percentage over 370. And then Skip Schumacher, he's batting in the 8th hole, also hitting over 300 and with an on-base percentage near 390. Pretty nice to have guys in the bottom of your lineup always on base like these guys.
So go get him, Aaron Harang, facing 6 guys who are batting 300 or better. Harang is 7-5.
And he comes at you with his fastball that both can cut and sink to it. A slider, curveball, and changeup. Likes to work away early and not afraid to come in so he can go back out there off the plate.
Harang had to wait on Rafael Furcal, who had the wrong helmet on. If Furcal had the wrong helmet, he had the ear flap on the wrong side.
Those switch hitters,
yeah.
You know, they have 2 different helmets. Some switch hitters just have one helmet and have the double ear flap.
Saves time. Furcal hitting .278 and down and in ball 1. 5 homers with 41 runs batted in. He figured it out eventually once he tugged on the wrong one and realized this doesn't feel right.
It's going up there like.
Harang noticed it too.
Well, that's nice of him,
isn't it? Swinging a pop-up. First baseman Loney coming in and into foul territory there for the catch. And Furcal is retired. Let's give you a look now at the Dodgers defensively. Abreu and Kemp in the outfield along with Ethier in right field. And a brand new third baseman, at least for tonight. Hanley Ramirez, Cruz, Ellis, and Loney rounding out the infield. And A.J. Ellis is the catcher. Hanley Ramirez not all that comfortable at third base while with the Marlins. That was well known. But it's a little more comfortable for him apparently to be there tonight in his Dodger debut than moving back to shortstop, which is how he came up.
I find that surprising. I thought maybe it's nice of Don Mattingly to give him that option, but coming in and having the option to go back to play shortstop, I know for myself as a shortstop, I'd be like, thank you very much. I'm right over there. Huh? It's like riding a bike. You never forget that. But he also had a respect of Luis Cruz, the way he's been playing as well.
Waved at and missed by Jay, a .307 hitter with 2 homers and 17 runs batted in. Matt Holliday on deck. The 1-2 fastball inside at 90. Harang's a big fella, 6'7", 260 from San Diego, California. And that's in there. He got him looking, strike 3 over the inside edge to punch out Jay, and there are 2 gone.
On this last pitch, Aaron Harang coming in on the lefty, throwing that sinking fastball. Looks like it's going to be inside on Jay, which freezes the left-handed hitter, and it tails back over the plate for a strike.
So now he'll go after Matt Holliday, having a really fine year. .317, 16 homers, 63 runs batted in, and really cooking coming into this series as he takes ball 1. His last 31 games, he's batting .422. A called strike.
That would tell me you're feeling pretty comfortable in the box when you look at those numbers.
He hit the longest home run recorded in this ballpark, which is 7 years old, New Busch Stadium, last week. 2-1. Here's a look at that swing. So up there into the nether regions of Big Mac land, 438 feet officially.
Yeah, I question that official. I was talking to the guys during batting practice while Matt Holliday was hitting batting practice. I was talking to Mark McGuire, Mabry down there, and they were saying, yeah, there was one that Big Mac hit, and they measured it, and it just went over that Big Mac land. And they measured that at 465. Then he hits one even farther, 3 tiers up, and it looked like the brick wall stopped it. And they just said, oh, that went 369. I mean, 468, 469. Yeah. That was original. I'm like, he goes, these measurements have to be off. I said, can anybody just say it's 500? And Big Mac goes, yeah, these guys are, the way they're hitting the ball, just say it's over 500. Don't be afraid, because these guys, ball was crushed.
Holiday taking ball 4. And here comes Carlos Beltran, the bad left-handed. 291, 22 homers, 71 runs batted in for the All-Star. Started in right field for the National League All-Star squad. 7th time he's been picked. Holiday at first base with 2 down. 1 ball and 1 strike on Carlos. Beltran at the end of June collected his 2,000th career hit. See his numbers against Harang. He sees him very, very well. Off speed at 73, and he missed with it. 2-1.
Well, Aaron Harang will come at you with so many different pitches. With that fastball, he'll change that speed. You see that 73 with that big curveball. Will come with that changeup on the outer half.
2-2. Beltran with a 6-game hitting streak. Two down, a man on, and back in Matt Holliday. Harang, his last 5 starts against St. Louis, is 0-4, although he has received almost no run support in those starts. That one just missed. Harang thought that was a strike.
Well, he was trying to do the same thing he did to John Jay, trying to freeze that left-hander on that tailing fastball to try to go inside off the plate and see if that tails back and catches the plate. I think it was just too high in the zone.
Alan Craig on deck. So Holiday will be off to the races here in the 3-2. Little pop-up. Ellis looking for room, and he has some. He makes the catch on the track for the out. It never got very high. So that's all. The Cardinals will strand 1. It'll be Ethier. Hanley Ramirez, his first at bat as a Dodger, and then Loney. Now, they've struggled all year with the bats, but the last couple of months they have been absolutely dreadful.
I mean, when you're last in all those major categories offensively, you need to try to do something. And I think Ramirez will definitely add and change those numbers, and I think will also give this lineup a boost.
Well, it's a boost he was not giving the Miami club really for the last couple of years. Won a batting title though a few seasons ago, and they hope it's the proverbial change of scenery for Hanley. Andre Ethier, see how much he benefits hitting right in front of Ramirez, at least in this lineup tonight. 291, 11 homers, 61 runs batted in for Ethier. This is a guy who can hit for power too. Hit 31 home runs in 09 and drove in 106.
Well, you mentioned a guy who can hit for power as well, and I think with the benefit of Ramirez hitting behind a guy like Andre Ethier, let's say there's a guy in scoring position where he gets into that 3-1 count, instead of going off the plate and out of his comfort zone because he's thinking that I have to carry the load to knock these guys in, I can keyhole a little bit more and really look for my pitch when I'm in a hitter's count to drive that ball, because even if I take that walk, I know the guy behind me and Hanley Ramirez can do the job and knock guys in. So I don't have to go off the zone. I don't have to expand my strike zone to try to drive that ball. And you'll see those power numbers go up because of guys hitting behind you.
1-2, got him looking. Well, Loge made a tough pitch. Ethier didn't think it was that good, and he questions Jeff Kellogg. But Ethier fans.
Well, he didn't like this pitch. He thought that pitch was down in the zone. We saw it started up. They wanted that ball out farther. Molina wanted that out farther, and that caught more of the plate, but I think Ethier was more questioning the height of that pitch as compared to the location of it.
So here comes the three-time All-Star Hanley Ramirez, just acquired from the Marlins. He swings immediately, hits a high fly to center field, racing back Jays, going all the way back to the track and the wall. He leaps, he can't get it. It's off the fence. Ramirez into second, on his way to third. He's going to get there without a play at third base, and immediately triples and takes a turn. He's thinking about maybe keeping on coming home. Not a bad start.
Well, they talked about change of scenery. That's what you were saying. Will this affect him? And the first pitch he sees, swings at it, and that ball just kept carrying, going and going. It made it very difficult on John Jay out there in center field. You know, he thinks, did I miss that? Did I just miss it? He thought he might have just popped that ball up and that there was a play on it. Must be nice to be able to kick it into another gear and make it an easy triple.
So you think that was the reaction, that he thought he popped it up? My first reaction was
he thought he got it all.
He thought he got it all.
Well,
that looked like a home run follow
free and easy. He said free and easy before. That's what he told Tim Kirchin, free and easy, and that was free and easy. He just
he looked to me like he was going to the home run trot, but here's Loney with the infield in, and he takes one up high for a ball one, but a triple on the very first pitch that he gets as a member of the Dodgers.
Now with Loney up, he has the infield in. I mean, this early in the game, I wonder if they're thinking this might be a low-scoring game, not willing to give up that run.
Well, Loge is 10-2. That one ripped foul, and with a 2.71 ERA.
You know, when I look at this infield coming in early in the ball game, I think with the offensive Dodgers, where they're struggling to score runs, and your offense not struggling to score runs, you know, bringing them in early to try to catch them at home plate or keep that runner at third base.
Loney, the big left-hand hitter out of Houston, 6'3", 220. His numbers have certainly gone down the last year or so, and that one down and in for a ball. Well, the Dodgers have been a roller coaster, and when Matt Kemp has been on board and healthy, they win. They started the year 30-13, then they went 12-12, then they went 6-19 over 25 games. They're 5-1 in their last 6. Bounced up there, Molina with the stop. 3-1. Hanley Ramirez right now in the 4th year of a 6-year, $70 million contract. He'll earn about $15.5 million next year. And from the reports we're getting, the Dodgers are willing to pay most of that freight, not the Marlins. There's a swing and a shot to right field. Beltran backing up. He makes the catch. That'll bring the run in. Ramirez tagging easily into score. The Dodgers lead it, and Hanley Ramirez gets the first run. Loney with his 27th RBI, a sacrifice to plate Ramirez.
It's a good job by James Loney. Got himself into a hitter's count, 3-1. Looks for a pitch up in the zone or a pitch that he can get in the air. He hits that ball extremely well. Drove that ball. And the worst thing he got out of that was an RBI because he did everything right. You know, obviously he probably wanted to get the hit, get that ball in the gap, get himself in a scoring position, but he did everything right and good things happen.
Luis Cruz here, and he hits a pop-up into right field. Easy play for Beltran. And he's got it for out number 3. But Hanley Ramirez, even though it looked like he thought he had a home run and he was into that trot, he'll take the triple, and he scores the first run of the ball game. Dodgers leading it 1-0 on a hot night in St. Louis.
Starting from mid-July through probably the end of August, it gets to be, you know, some long days. Everybody talks about Groundhog Day.
Your body's, you know, at that stage where you're like, man, you know, you wake up in the morning and you're definitely not 100%.
There are no dog days of summer if you're in the, you know, in the running.
When you're winning, it doesn't matter as much as it does as far as the day-to-day grind. You actually want to get to the field.
Well, it's a tidy 102 right now here in St. Louis. Both of these teams are winning, though, and they are in the hunt. So probably, as Aubrey Huff said there, they're not feeling it as much as the teams at the bottom of the division.
When you're in the hunt, it makes those dog days a whole lot easier.
Alan Craig, one of the World Series heroes, 302, 14 home runs, playing first base tonight. Lance Berkman is out of the lineup. He actually got drilled by a pitch last night on the same knee that had recently been surgically repaired. I mean, of all the places for Lance to get hit, right on that knee.
And what was amazing about that, it was his back leg. He was batting right-handed at the time, and the back leg gets hit. Usually you think, okay, he got hit in the knee, it's that front leg. But the back leg gets smoked, and that's where he had the surgery. And we hope everything is okay, that it's just a contusion he's dealing with.
Up and in, that takes the bat right out of Craig's hand. Last night, third inning, hit on that right knee by Clayton Kershaw. Same knee he had surgically repaired earlier. Initially stayed in the game, but running very gingerly. At which point the Cardinals took him out, brought in Matt Carpenter. They rave about what a great clubhouse guy Lance Berkman is, how funny he is, how he breaks everybody up, keeps everybody loose. Oh, and he can hit a little bit.
Well, that helps.
3-2 to count on Craig. Molina on deck. And he walked him. Second walk issued here by Aaron Harang. One man on. Let's get it back to the studio for an update and bring in Carl Ravitch. Ravi.
Hi, Dave, here with John Kruk. You know, the Dodgers record and the Angels record identical when the day begins. Dodgers got better. The Angels have been good.
Have been really good, and Mike Trout spearheaded that greatness.
Trout goes yard, and also going deep, Torrey Hunter. 4 for 5 today.
Is Mr. Trout your MVP?
Yes.
No debate about it.
Rookie of the year, MVP.
Yep. Swinging a line shot, base hit into right center field. He dropped it in. Molina with a single. Craig rounding second. Bobbled out there by Ethier in right field. And stopping at third is Craig. And a single for Molina. They're on the corners for the Cardinals.
Well, ball away, breaking ball going away. Got it off the end of the bat just a little bit, but he stays back enough and keeps those hands back enough and drives it to right center.
And Molina's having an outstanding offensive season. He's already hit more home runs than he's ever hit before.
And I think that at bat right there shows why he's been so effective this year. I mean, that was a good breaking ball in the outer half of home plate, and he keeps his hands back, staying balanced, wasn't out in front of that ball, and has enough to still drive it out there to right center.
So 2 on for Freese, who's the hottest hitter going right now for the Cardinals. A 7-game hit streak. We showed you he's 11 for his last 21. Went for it there. 1-1 to count. Craig went first to third on the Molina hit to right. He represents the tying run. 1-0 Dodgers. 2 balls and a strike on Freese, the World Series hero, won the MVP of the World Series and also the National League Championship Series.
Well, we mentioned about how good this lineup has been and why they're tops in the NL in so many different offensive categories. I just think about having that MVP batting in the 7th hole.
Hard hit. Nice play by Cruz. Flips to Ellis. Got one on the first. Double play. How about that effort by Luis Cruz on a line shot. One big skip. He stayed down and made a marvelous play. The run coming in to score, but now 2 out.
Well, from the offensive side, Freese does his job and smokes this ball, but Cruz just comes up with a beautiful short hop play and able to get that double play. He's staying with his ball and flipping it to Mark Ellis to finish that double play.
On the other hand, for Freese, who just got robbed, even his outs are loud. Here's Schumacher, and he takes the first pitch inside ball 1. Hitting .314, no homers, 19 RBIs. Out of the 8-hole for Mike Matheny.
Something you don't see in the National League too often, that 8-hole hitter batting .314. Something you see more in the American League. You see that 8 to 9 guy hitting over 300, some of these offenses. And I think of like the Texas Rangers.
Kyle Loge, not much of a hitter on deck. Popped him up. Hanley Ramirez there along with Cruz. Cruz wants to take it. And the side is retired. The leadoff walk came back to hurt Aaron Harang. That run comes in to score, and we are tied 1-1 at the end of 2. ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Aleve. Try Aleve for relief from tough headaches. Scenes from the St. Louis Cardinals 2011 World Series Championship. And that incredible come from behind victory in Game 6 and then won it all in Game 7. So champions again as they were in 2006. David Freese with as good a Game 6 as you will ever see. Now, a tremendous World Series for him all the way around, but particularly 6 and 7. Ellis swings at the first pitch and knocks one down the right field line foul. This is A.J. Ellis. They also have Mark Ellis in the lineup. This Ellis, a catcher, 278, 7 home runs, and he walks a lot.
Patient hitter swinging at the first pitch.
He must have chatted with Nomar Garciaparra before the game.
Well, we did talk. It was good to see him. Went into the locker room, said hi to him, and I said, don't be afraid to be aggressive. And there it is. That was for me.
For a change.
Yep.
Yeah. He leads the majors, seeing over 4.5 pitches per plate appearance. He's facing a guy, Kyle Loge, who hardly ever walks anybody.
Kyle Loge is a strike thrower. He's going to attack you.
Ground ball past the mound. Here comes for call. Still has that outstanding arm. 1 man out. Pitcher coming up next. Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell, and that bitter division rivalry continues. The Red Sox heading to the Bronx to take on the Yankees at 8 p.m. And then on Monday Night Baseball, presented by USAA at 7, it's the Angels looking to unseat the West leading Rangers. Both games available on ESPN3. Harang hitting .057, so it's a challenge with a bat in his hands. No homers, 2 RBIs. Bobby Abreu on deck. We're tied 1-1. He does make contact. Another play for call. A former Dodger who throws him out. Time for another update. Let's get it back to the studio, and here's Carl Ravitch.
With John Kruk, everybody's starting to take notice of the A's, including the Texas Ranger manager. John, they scored 1 in the first and then had 8 more in the second inning.
Ricky Rose struggled a little bit lately, but awful lately, but Oakland taking advantage.
Ricky Rose, 6 walks in less than 2 innings. J.P. Arencibia, broken bone in hand, out 6 weeks. It is 10-0 in favor of the A's. Dave, they cannot stay healthy.
Now Oakland going for 7 consecutive wins. So are we looking at the new money ball for Billy Beane? Here's Bobby Abreu. Tried to drop down a bunt. First inning, he did drop it down out in front of the plate, but he was thrown out by the catcher, actually tagged out by Molina. Base is empty and 2 away. Up the middle, a dive and a miss by for call and a base hit for Abreu with 2 out.
I was thinking Furcal was going to make all plays during this inning. Great effort by Furcal up the middle. Abreu breaking ball in the outer half, stays with it, doesn't try to pull this ball. That's what makes Abreu so good. Said he doesn't try to do too much when pitches are on the outer half. Great effort by Furcal trying to come up with a great play.
Abreu signed by the Dodgers as a free agent in early May after he was cut by the Angels. Here's Mark Ellis. He's 0 for 1 with a tapper to third. Now, many times in your career, you made all 3 plays and had 3 assists in an inning. Did you come back to the dugout and just say, hey, look, everybody relax, okay? I've got this. Don't worry about a thing.
Well, I just came back and said I just tied a major league record.
And that's true. You did. Yeah. Held by literally thousands. Co-held with you.
Right.
With Nomar Garciaparra.
Furcal was just trying to get his name next to me on that inning.
Matt Kemp on deck, 1 man on and 2 men out. We're in the top of the 3rd on a steamy night in St. Louis. Popped up. Freeze with an easy play into foul territory. And the side is retired. No runs, 1 hit, 1 man left. Fred Bird ready to roll in the big ballpark here in St. Louis. We're tied 1-1. The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series returns to ESPN with the Brickyard 400. Championship contenders Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Tony Stewart are looking to continue their momentum and make a statement at Indianapolis. The Brickyard 400 presented by Golden Corral. Coverage begins next Sunday at noon on ESPN. Back in St. Louis, Nomar Garciaparra, Dave O'Brien and Tim Kirkjian alongside. This is game 3 of a 4-game series. Right now even at 1 apiece. Kyle Loge, the pitcher. He'll be followed by Rafael Furcal and then John Jay for the top scoring team in the National League. St. Louis beating Clayton Kershaw, the reigning Cy Young winner, 8-2 here last night. Adam Wainwright getting the win and also had a couple of big RBIs in that game. A 2-1. That will miss, and now 3 balls and a strike on Loge. There's Wainwright, who has recovered from the arm injury. Pitched very effectively. And that one in there for a strike on Loge, who wanted the walk. Called back by Jeff Kellogg. 3-2.
That's the lower part of the zone. I think even Ethier was questioning when he was up.
Down he goes on a swing and a miss for strike 3. Second K in the book there for Harang. Let's get it back to the studio, and here's Carl Ravitch.
All right, Obi, thank you. Tampa Bay, Baltimore, 5-1 game. Roberts about face.
Catman in Baltimore going deep.
The Rays have 10. The A's now have 11. An update from that game coming up.
Now it appears the baseball is flying. It remains to be seen if that will happen here tonight at Busch Stadium, where we're tied 1-1. And Furcal takes a strike. He popped out foul to the first baseman his first at bat. He was a Dodger for 6 years between 2006 and 2011. Pops this one up into shallow left. Cruz out, Abreu in, and Cruz will take it. 2 fast outs in the 3rd. John Jay up next. Now time to take a look at what's next, brought to you by CenturyLink. And what's next on the schedule? The Dodgers, the Giants, the Diamondbacks, and the Cubs. Of course, they're trying to chase down San Francisco in the West. And for St. Louis, their rivals, the Chicago Cubs. Then they're at Colorado and against the Milwaukee Brewers, trying to keep their hopes alive.
When I look at that schedule as a player, I was looking at the Dodgers. I see they got to go to San Francisco next. I'm just thinking I go from 103 no sleeves sweating to probably having to put sleeves on over there in San Francisco.
Sure. Comebacker speared by Harang. That's going to be a very quick inning. Gets him 1-2-3 and zips through the 3rd inning. Only 10 pitches. That's all he needed in the heat here tonight. Well, coming up, it'll be Kemp, Ethier, and Hanley Ramirez, who's already tripled in his first Dodger at bat. Still to come from St. Louis. Matt Kemp, when healthy, is an absolute masher. You look at his numbers since 2011, a .330 average, 53 home runs. That's top 10 in the National League and in a very big ballpark, and 160 RBIs in the top 12 in the National League. Certainly the leader of this team. You knew him when you played with him very well. He was a different guy then, wasn't he?
He was. I mean, he was coming up, and it was something we all saw. We knew he had this type of ability, MVP caliber type of ability. He had everything. But I think early in his career, he took that constructive criticism personally as if it was an attack on him rather than actually being constructive. And I think once he realized that people were actually there to help him and wanting to see his ability flourish and thrive, it helped him. It changed him and started recognizing and picking that. And I think he also recognized that there was confidence that Don Mattingly wanted him to be the man, having confidence that the leader that people can look to.
Sometimes it's the right voice, isn't it? The one you choose to hear. I remember he had some rather celebrated run-ins with Larry Bowa when Larry Bowa was on that staff. But Don Mattingly has perhaps a different way of saying it and a different way of communicating it. And Matt Kemp has matured a great deal as an athlete and as a leader with the Dodgers. He takes that one in there for a strike.
And what I really impressed is whatever voice that it took is that it has made an impact. And he is, I mean, last year, I mean, he was arguably the MVP of last year, the NL. But he's taken it seriously where he knows he still has to work extremely hard. It's easy to say, okay, I had a great year, I'm the guy, and take it easy. He works extremely hard in the offseason. I mean, he came into the season talking about trying to be that 50-50 guy because he believes and has the ability to be that guy. And I think once that pressure has been put on him, he's embraced it.
1-2, and he wouldn't chase. 2 balls, 2 strikes on Kemp. Ethier on deck, and then Ramirez, the new 3, 4, and 5 for the Dodgers with Hanley Ramirez on board. That was the major baseball news of the day. The trade from the Marlins to the Dodgers. A wave and a miss, and down goes Kemp. He fans. And for more on that 3, 4, 5, let's bring in Tim Kirkchin. Tim.
Dave, before the game, Don Mattingly pointed out his lineup card and said, this is what I really like, pointing at 3, 4, 5, and said every one of these guys is under 30 years old. He said we've got them signed long-term, or at least for a couple more years each. He said this is not a 2-month rental with Hanley Ramirez. And keep in mind, this is the same Don Mattingly who had to hit Adam Kennedy fourth this year and Jerry Hairston fourth this year. Now he's got a 3, 4, 5 that he is really happy with. Keep in mind, this Dodger team in June hit 6 home runs as a team. 33 different players hit 6 home runs in June. That's how many the Dodgers hit as a team. And they don't have that worry about that anymore with 3, 4, and 5 set up.
Yep, remarkable, and that one socked into right field by Ethier. That'll drop down for a base hit. A lunging stab by Beltran, and heading into second is Ethier. He's trying for it, the throw, and did not get it. A hustle double by Andre Ethier. A little bit of a slip out there by Beltran. You see, he tore up a divot. That was all the opening it seems that Ethier needed.
Well, the key for this double right here is right out of the box. When Ethier hit this, he was hustling right out of the box. And you're right, Beltran goes over there. Farder's right and had a little slip there. But I don't know if that really changed Ethier's mind. But he was thinking 2 right out of there. And he really turned it on and got into scoring position.
So an RBI chance for Hanley Ramirez, who has already tripled and scored. The lone Dodger run tonight. Now Hanley wore number 2 in Miami. He's wearing number 13 with the Dodgers. Number 2 was taken and retired by Tommy Lasorda. So 13 is the number he will wear while with the Dodgers, and that's in there for a strike. Ramirez is a .300 career hitter. Now his numbers have been in decline, and rather swiftly. From batting .342 in 2009, winning the batting title, to .243, .246 the last 2 years. He takes a ball there. He's dropped from 106 RBIs to just 76 the following year in 2010, and then just 45 last year, although that was an injury-plagued year. But all of their reports were, the Dodger reports they were getting from Miami, they felt that the ballpark was really costing him home runs down there, and that his power numbers, his overall numbers, would have looked a lot better even in Dodger Stadium.
Well, the other thing is it plays in your mind mentally as a hitter. When you don't have that confidence that even if I square that ball up and I hit it with everything I have and it doesn't go out for me, it plays with you. It has a real big effect on you.
High fly ball into left field. This is driven deep. Holiday is back. He's at the warning track to line it up, and he makes the catch. Tagging up at second, Ethier. He's into third, and they're in front of the throw. Hanley just missed one there. Just got under it. A little bit of a grin there.
I think he's grinning because he realized he just missed this ball. He just got under it. Taking that high leg kick just out in front. Just a hair. And that was the difference of that ball going out and staying in.
Now the Dodgers with the go-ahead run 90 feet away for James Loney. He already has an RBI tonight on a sacrifice fly. Although that will not do the trick here. 2 down. Loney with 2 home runs. Rips that one and caught by Schumacher, the second baseman. The side is retired. Ethier stranded at third base. We played 3.5 in St. Louis, locked up 1-1 on Wednesday Night Baseball. Hey, Miguel Cabrera, David Price, Justin Verlander, they are just a handful of the players who have visited MLB Fan Cave this season. The Fan Cave has also hosted over 24 concerts and celebrity guests. Follow at MLB Fan Cave on Twitter and like the MLB Fan Cave on Facebook. Omar Garciaparra, Dave O'Brien, and Tim Kirkchin, who's in for Pedro Gomez this week on our Wednesday Night Baseball show. And there's Holiday with a foul ball for strike 1. He walked in the first inning.
I was wondering if the MLB Fan Cave had popcorn like that. But they were. I remember we stopped by there, and I don't remember seeing popcorn like they just had here at the stadium.
I remember being offered a lukewarm bottle of water. That's what I remember. But no popcorn. We'll get to that next time. Especially if we keep doing that, we'll embarrass them. They treated us very well. We had a great time right there in New York City. Tied 1-1 here in the bottom of the 4th. Holiday with 63 runs batted in. And he's always hit the Dodgers particularly well. .344 lifetime against Los Angeles. Just off the outside.
As much as we talk about Dodger Stadium not necessarily being a hitter-friendly stadium because that big, thick air, but there's a lot of people who come in and enjoy hitting there. You're talking about Matt Holliday, Hanley Ramirez, or a couple of guys who have had success at Dodger Stadium.
Big swing and a miss, and down goes Holliday. He fans. Studio update time. Back to Carl Ravitch. Ravi.
All right, OB with John Kruk. The top 2 scoring teams in the majors, the Rangers and Red Sox. Bases loaded for Beltre here in the left side of the infield. Third, and he flies out.
Rangers continue to struggle in this series with runners in scoring position.
And the guy who caught the ball was Will Middlebrooks. How do you like me now? He goes deep.
Complete player.
He's been in a little slump, but Boston's got a 2-0 lead with Beckett on the mound.
And this one gets right through Loney on the right side, and Carlos Beltran will reach. So he's aboard.
Here's a ball that Loney just misplays that ball. He's trying to get his body in front of that, but didn't get his body well enough in front of that. He was kind of off to the side as that ball skips by him.
So it'll be an error on Loney. See if that opens a door for the Cardinals and Alan Craig, who walked and scored a run in the second inning for the Cardinals. He had a 2-run double here last night. Molina would be next. Ball 1 on Craig. Cardinals trying to chase down red-hot Cincinnati. The Reds have won 6 in a row, but they also have the Pirates in front of them now, and by a fairly good distance in the National League Central. Pittsburgh Pirates, even though They had lost 2 in a row going into play today. They won, so they are now 2 games behind Cincinnati, and they're the Cardinals 6-back. Remember how the second half got underway with the Cardinals being swept in Cincinnati. That's in there for a called strike on Craig. Beltran always a threat to steal a base. Fouled off 1-2. In fact, Carlos Beltran became the first switch hitter this season in baseball history to have 300 homers and 300 stolen bases.
The only switch, and one of just 8 players in Major League history to do it. The only switch hitter. So he beats you in so many different ways. I mean, obviously, he can hit for average, he can hit for power, drives in runs, but also gets himself into scoring position.
Orang trying to pitch around the error. Big swing and a miss by Craig, and down he goes, strike 3. That's his second strikeout in an inning that ought to be over. As we take a look at Get a Better State, brought to you by State Farm. We're talking about Yadier Molina, who's coming up. An average season for him was .274. This year, just off the charts in every category.
305, power, driving in runs, just doing everything on the offensive side, and we know how much he affects on the defensive side as well, being that Gold Glove catcher that he is.
4 straight times. He singled his first time up, so he's 1 for 1. Asking for time, he'll step out. 2 down and 1 on. Tied 1-1 in the 4th inning. Molina with a career high 15 home runs already. 0-1. Now, Mike Matheny's made the comment, of course he was a catcher and a very good one, a Gold Glover as well, that you really can't quantify all the areas where Molina has value to the St. Louis Cardinals. So many intangible qualities, how he manages a game, stuff that doesn't show up on a stat sheet, and stuff that a sabermetrician can't necessarily put into numbers and show it to you.
Well, you can't have a number on how he handles the staff, how he can recognize where pitchers might be off in the middle of a game, when to call timeout, when to leave, when not to call timeout, when to leave a pitcher alone, when to go out there. It also helps a manager such as Matheny knowing that, okay, I don't have to maybe go waste a trip out there to go talk to my pitcher. I have a guy like Molina who understands and probably has a better look than I may have over here in the dugout to go talk to him. And we talk about that strong arm, but he really slows down the running game.
Well, if not stops it entirely.
Right. I mean, you have to, not only just from stealing the bag, if you're even when you're leading off first as a base runner. And I remember this where I couldn't even get a really good secondary to get myself into position in a base hit because he can snap throw behind you and pick you off.
He's so willing to do that.
And yeah, so you also shorten up your secondary lead, which also changes you. Let's say there's a base hit, there might be a play at third or even at home, and if you're out just by a step, that secondary has the difference, makes a difference that you don't necessarily see. That's an intangible that has no number.
Yep.
And it also stops you from trying to steal the bag, stealing second, stealing third because of that strong arm.
2-2 check swing, and now ball 3. Matheny said, you know, blocking a pitch in the dirt to keep runners at first and second instead of allowing them to advance to second and third, keeping that double play in order. There's no number on that.
And also the confidence your pitcher has, knowing that I can bury that breaking ball in the dirt. When he's asking for that ball in the dirt, I'm going to give it to him, knowing he's going to block it.
3-2 hammered, a line shot to left. Abreu, though, is playing deep, reaches up, and he makes the catch and tiptoes onto the warning track. That was a bullet. A long drive by Molina, nothing to show for it. It's cooling off. It's down to about 99 in St. Louis. It's tied 1-1. This would be great about now. MLB.tv is baseball everywhere. Watch almost 100 out-of-market games live per week on your favorite devices. Visit MLB.tv for details. Quick, what's your favorite? What's your favorite? What are you ordering?
Vanilla. Very plain vanilla.
Did you see the size of those chocolate chips? They're like the size of Montana, the ones they had in there. for the chocolate chip. My goodness. It is selling briskly tonight. Luis Cruz, who's made an outstanding defensive play at short tonight, 0 for 1 with a fly to right.
The milkshake sounds good right about now. I wonder if they can make a milkshake and send one up to us.
Are we begging now?
Maybe a little bit.
How about the snow cone? Can't go wrong with a snow cone.
Maybe a snow cone machine for you, huh, Paulie? You like snow cones?
Pop into short right field, racing out Schumacher. Beltran coming in. Oh, nice play. Schumacher with an over-the-shoulder lunging play with his back to home plate. Can't do it much better than that.
Such a difficult play for an infielder, not just going over your shoulder and coming up with that, but also the fear that you don't really know where your outfielders are because they're not necessarily calling it. You don't know if they're going to come in hard and run into you at this play, but still staying on that ball. And you see Loesch appreciating the great effort by Schumacher.
So one man out. Here's A.J. Ellis, the Dodger catcher. He's grounded to short 0 for 1. He has a .392 on base percentage. And he has drawn 45 walks. That's top 10. Not with swings like that, though. Nothing in 2. Get badly fooled there. He's going to take a moment. This is a chance for a very quick inning for Kyle Loesch, who is 10-2. He buries that pitch. He gets the bottom third of the order. Of course, the pitcher, the number 9 hitter, and not a pitcher anywhere near the class of Adam Wainwright, who drove in 2 runs last night.
You're talking from the hitting side.
From the hitting side, and was hilarious about it after the game.
He picked himself up. I mean, against a guy like Clayton Kershaw, he coming up with a huge double, RBI double, the first RBI. Then he got a bases loaded walk.
And then after the game, he was trying to keep a straight face with reporters, saying, you know, you've got to throw me quality strikes. You know, I'm just, if you're Clayton, I don't care who you are, Clayton Kershaw, whatever, you've got to throw me quality strikes. 3-2 hammered. That one a gap shot deep into left center field. Nobody out there. It short hops the wall. Ellis heading into second base, and that's an easy double for him. He rips it with one man out here in the 5th.
Well, I guess him regrouping on that one swing really helped out because he takes a tremendous swing at this one, staying on that ball out in front just a little bit, but really barreling that ball up and driving it to left center.
I should say a very nice recovery. And now Harang 0 for 1 with a ground to short. He did put it in play. He'll take up high, ball 1.
He doesn't have an RBI on the season. Let's see if he can help himself out in this situation.
Ellis with the double, trying to untie it. Just a piece of it for Harang. 1-1 to count.
And in this situation, I've seen some managers, even with one out, have your pitcher square around and get the guy over to third base. I think Don Manley is choosing to say, hey, you know, he made contact his first at bat. Let's see, maybe it finds a hole. Maybe something could, maybe he can get his first RBI of the year.
Outside the ball. Bobby Abreu on deck. And he does put it in play up the middle. A nice friendly hop for Furcal. The runner advances to third as Harang grounds out, but he moves the runner up.
Well, he at least got him over to third base, and I stand corrected. I thought he had no RBIs. He has 2 RBIs on the year. So, but he made contact his first at bat. Like I said, let him swing, see if he maybe it finds a hole, and that one almost found the hole right there. You have good range by Furcal, and that took a friendly hop right up to him to make that play.
Well, now it's up to Bobby Abreu. 1 for 2 tonight. Abreu has driven in 17 runs on the year. Bobby Abreu in his career has hit 565 doubles. Those who have followed his career know he's been a gap hitting machine. But 565.
Don't be afraid to go to third on a couple of those, right?
Yeah, there is a third base over there, Bobby.
Right.
Look at the steals, get the power, and all those 2 base hits. He's had a fine career. That one's in there for a called strike. A let up at 80. Ellis at third base, trying to untie it. We're in the 5th inning. Fans doing their best to stay cool. It was 104 degrees late this afternoon, 103 at game time. The pitch down low, or 102 at game time.
And on that pitch right there, we just talked about Yadier Molina, talking about the intangibles. And you have a guy 90 feet away, and Molina asking for that curveball down in the zone. Kyle Lohse having the confidence that he can. It didn't bounce that, but you know Yadier Molina, as good as he is back there, is going to knock it down.
Mark Ellis on deck. Here's the 2-1 from Lohse. Up and in around the elbow now, 3-1. Lohse gave up 11 hits to the Dodgers in Los Angeles back on May 20th. That was a 6-5 loss. He didn't feel like he got hit particularly hard, but he got hit often. The 3-1. Ground ball. He rolled over to Schumacher, and an easy stab for him, and the side is retired. So Lohse does good work pitching around the double by Ellis. That sun beginning to set here around the arch. We're tied 1-1. Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. It has a bitter division rivalry. The Red Sox heading to the Bronx to take on the Yankees at 8. Then on Monday Night Baseball, presented by USAA, 7 o'clock, it's the Angels and the West leading Texas Rangers. Have we done enough food shots for you here on this Wednesday?
No, I'm hungry now.
You are always.
I was just wondering if we do enough of them, will they send something up here for us?
Nothing yet as we continue to beg. David Freese hit into a double play, but it took a whale of a play by Cruz, the shortstop, to double him up in the 2nd inning. A diving play to his left on a short hop stab. That's how hot Freese is going these days, but Cruz robbed him. Cut on and missed.
It's a nice pitch by Harang. Goes outside with a fastball to see if he can catch the corner, and then goes back out there with a very similar pitch with an off-speed pitch that gets him swinging.
Off the outside at 90.
So now he sets him up where if he wants to, he can even throw that. He can go back out there with a breaking ball away, start off in the corner, or come back in with a fastball in on the hands.
Check swing and looped a foul. He didn't mean to, but he made contact. 3-2. He's hitting .376 in his last 36 games, so he has been cooking for a while. Schumacher and then the pitcher Lohse in this inning. That one driven down the right field line, slicing deep into the corner, and that's going to be a fair ball up against the fence. Freese racing for second, and the throw won't get him. He's got a double, and he stays on fire. So that's 12 hits in his last 23 at bats.
Well, you said he's been swinging a hot bat. I mean, here's that ball, looking for that ball down in the zone. That's where Ellis wanted it, and here was a fastball up in the zone. And Freese doing an excellent job, one, getting on top of that ball, and the other not trying to pull that ball, but going with it. Gets himself a double to right field.
Well, the Dodgers making a big move today to bring in Hanley Ramirez, and we bring in Tim Kirchin. Tim, any more on the horizon for LA?
Absolutely. I checked on this today, and I was assured the Dodgers are not done. They obviously are looking for another starting pitcher. Ryan Dempster really wants to go there, we've heard, and I'm told they're still in the hunt for him. It will not
Schumacher with a ground ball to Ellis. That'll advance the runner. One out, but Freese moves down to third. Tim?
They will not give up Zach Lee in that trade. He's the top prospect they have. I was told they're not going to trade him in a rental situation. However, if they could get a big-time starting pitcher who they could re-sign long-term or is already signed long-term, they would consider trading their top prospect. They're also in it for a bat, but I was told there are so few bats available right now. That's why they went out and got Ramirez as quickly as they did. They couldn't wait for another one to come forward.
Infield in here for Los Angeles. Another question for Tim Kurkjian here is Loge bats. He struck out his first time up, indicating a bunt, pops it up in a foul ground for a strike. Tim, Dempster, you say, wants to come to the Dodgers. That's his team of choice. Does he have any power to maneuver that?
Well, he's got, you know, full veto power here, and he can say, I don't want to go there, I don't want to go here. Now, none of that's going to matter unless they can agree on the players. So if he got sent somewhere he didn't want to go, he says, I don't want to go there. But he wants to come to L.A. from what I'm told. It's just a matter of finding the right people in that deal.
Okay, Tim, thank you very much. For call, the on-deck hitter, a man at third. He's swinging away, and Loge fouls it back. Now he's in the hole 0-2. This is a guy you hit well in your career. Nomar, you hit a lot of guys well, but 389 against Aaron Harang. What's the key?
Well, I always felt like I was going to get a fastball, even though he may get ahead of me on off speed, that at some point I was going to get a fastball, and I wanted to make sure I didn't miss it.
0-2 got a piece of it.
I mean, he mixes his pitches very well. He likes to go away as well early on in the count against right-handers, especially against power hitters, guys with some power. He'll stay away, but he's not afraid to, you know, he has confidence in that fastball. He has confidence that he can have command of that to throw it on both sides of the plate.
Only one out. Go ahead run at third for the Cardinals, tied 1-1 in the bottom of the fifth. Puts it in play to right field. Ethier lines it up, makes the catch. Here comes Freese, the throw coming into the plate, and they won't get him. The run scores, and the Cardinals lead it on an RBI by Kyle Loge. It's the second straight night that a Cardinal pitcher has picked up at least one RBI.
But this is interesting. I think A.J. Ellis was asking for this ball up in the zone, this fastball. We see that. See how he was looking for that ball up there? And it's interesting why I'm saying that, because a ball up in the zone is one of those balls easier to get up in the air. You have your infield in, you're looking for that ground ball as compared to a ball down in the zone. And Loge was able to get the bat on that and get that sacrifice fly.
Not a terribly long throw for Ethier, and if he throws it on the fly, they may get him at the plate. But Loge comes up with the RBI, and the Cardinals have the lead 2-1. Here's for call. Waves at that one. He's gone 0 for 2 tonight.
Well, these Cardinals, they've went 78 games straight without an RBI from the pitcher, and now they've done it in back-to-back games.
Yeah, 3 RBIs the last 2 nights for their pitching staff. Right through Ellis all the way to the backstop. So St. Louis in the lead, even though the Dodgers have out-hit them 4-2. Hanley Ramirez, the newest Dodger, tripled on the very first pitch he got tonight. And then would score a run. It's all LA's gotten so far. That one is in there for strike 3. So for call, fans. But St. Louis has the lead. Loge driving in David Freese, and it's now 2-1 St. Louis through 5. ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Domino's. Oh, yes, we did. The St. Louis Cardinals have just forged into the lead thanks to a sacrifice fly from their starting pitcher, Kyle Loge. He's back on the mound for his 6th inning and a 1-run advantage. Here's Mark Ellis. He is grounded out and popped up 0 for 2. Ellis, the slick fielding second baseman, generally considered one of the best second basemen of the last 10 years or so, although he has never won a Gold Glove. It comes down to what you hit so often.
That's what I said. I go, he hasn't hit good enough to win that Gold Glove. And people look at me like I have two heads. What are you talking about? I think oftentimes these guys who won Gold Gloves, who they hit well because they leave that lasting impression when it comes down to the voting in the end. And that's what is, I believe coaches have a big influence on that when they vote for that. And they're thinking about the guy who's probably beat them up more on the offensive side than on the glove side.
In there for a called strike. Ellis, a .266 career hitter.
But aside from the glove, he brings so many other intangibles. And he handles the bat well. Hitting in that 2-hole, he can do different things. When there's guys on, he can hit and run. He can move guys over. He's one of those guys that just you need on the team. The numbers may not jump off the page, but he has such an impact on your team.
He's followed by Matt Kemp and then Andre Ethier as the Dodgers look to get even. Now the left side of the Dodger infield, of course, Hanley Ramirez has now joined that left side. But up to this point, up until the trade of Ramirez, hit a combined .260 with just 8 home runs coming into tonight's game. Another one fouled away. The 8 home runs from third base and shortstop combined ties them with the White Sox for the fewest for any major league team. And the 72 RBIs ranks 28th in the majors, ahead of only the Phillies and the Angels. Line shot into left center field. Racing over to cut it down is Jay. Heading in to second base, Ellis, and the throw is going to be cut. He's in with a double. Mark Ellis with a 2-base hit to begin the 6th inning. Studio update time. Here's Carl Ravitch.
All right, OB, John Kruk, the Rangers have come back tied at 2, and then a little blooper here gives them a 3-2 lead.
That's a beautiful thing. Pop one up, you think, okay, that's an out. Cody Ross can't make a play and a run scored.
Replay show, he just kind of whiffed it. He is okay. Rangers have a 1-run lead.
A scary moment in that ball game last night between those two teams as you look at the Yankees leading the Orioles by 7.5. Red Sox now 10 games off the pace. Adrian Beltre was beamed by Vicente Padilla off the helmet. No concussion. Here's Matt Kemp. But what a weird night last night was. Beltre got hit. Lance Berkman got hit here. Albert Pujols got hit. And A-Rod broke his hand on a pitch.
Yeah, a lot of freakish accidents going on. There's a lot of people getting hit. Talk about the heat affecting hitters and balls going long ball. Sometimes the heat and the humidity affects the grip on the baseball for a pitcher. Sometimes you can lose that grip.
Kemp 0 for 2, cuts and misses.
And here's the situation right now with Matt Kemp. Batting third and the effect that Hanley Ramirez could have in the lineup. As a third hitter, I got an important run at second base with a leadoff double. I'm thinking, am I trying to move the guy over or am I trying to knock him in? And I have to not just understand the guy behind me and say Andre Ethier, but I'm thinking about the guy behind him. Because if I move him over and I get out just to move him over, well, they can pitch around Andre and pitch to that fifth guy. Well, when I got a guy like Hanley Ramirez now batting there, I can move him over. Go ahead and walk Ethier if you pick your poison so you can face a guy like Hanley Ramirez. That affects, Hanley Ramirez can affect a 3-hole hitter and guys behind him as well.
1-1 rattle foul. So in other words, you're thinking right now, hitting where Kemp is batting in this game situation, about the guy 2 batters behind him.
Correct.
And what he's capable of.
Right. Because if I'm coming up, I'm thinking, okay, I know I'm the 3rd-hole hitter and I'm your RBI guy, but am I thinking in this at bat, am I really trying to stay inside the ball? Because the worst thing, maybe I go to the right field. I'm still trying to drive him in. I'm not giving myself up. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to drive him, but I'm really forcing myself to stay in because worst case scenario, if I do say hit that ground ball or if I'm out, I can at least move him over as compared to say, all right, I don't care where it's pitched, I'm driving it to knock this guy out. If I pull it, if I don't move him over, I still would like to have something positive come out. If I don't have a guy who's batting that well behind my 4 hitter, then I'm pulling the ball wherever that ball is pitched. I'm driving. I don't care if I'm pulling it to the left side, right side. I'm trying to knock him in because we're going to take 2 chances, hopefully, to knock him in. But with that 5th guy, it now allows me to say, okay, even if I give myself up, I have confidence in those 2 guys to pick up this runner at third base.
Kemp 344 with men in scoring position. Rattles that one foul. Just got a piece of it. Tell you what, we've had many shots of Hanley Ramirez tonight interacting with his new teammates, some of whom he probably hadn't met before tonight. He seems like he is fitting in like a glove. like they love the idea, as Tim Kirchin told us. They were raving in their clubhouse about him coming on board, all legitimately excited that they had gotten Hanley. And he's been doing nothing but smiling since he got here. As a Dodger. Cut on and missed, and down goes Kemp, so he fans. Big out there for Loge. Now he has to go after Andre Ethier.
Big strikeout for Loge. Getting him with the off-speed pitch away, that changeup away that Kemp just fans at. And here's exactly what I'm talking about. Now, what do you do as a pitcher? Oftentimes, you would say, I'm going to pitch around Andre Ethier. You know, they still might, because they might think righty on righty and not give him much. But in the past, if you're Andre Ethier, you know, okay, I may not be able to see, once again, expand my zone. I know I may not see any pitches here because of the guy protecting me behind me.
And the left-hand hitter up there as well. He's doubled and struck out looking tonight. The Dodgers, incidentally, 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. Ellis trying to score on a Dodger hit. 1-0. Ether at 349 with runners in scoring position. One man out, and the 1-0 pitch. Loop towards center, coming on Jay. An easy play to make the catch, and the runner has to hold. And there are 2 down for Hanley Ramirez.
Well, Hanley Ramirez in his first at bat is already endearing himself to his teammates and the Dodger faithful. Coming up big, thinking he may have gotten that ball out of the ballpark, but still hitting a triple and still thinking of that extra base. And then in the 4th inning, this one he just missed, hitting it to the warning track, but still moving the runner over. Andre Ethier doing a good job. He was on second base taking that extra base. And now here's an opportunity for him to come up big and knock in a run. The guy at second base and try to tie this ball game up.
Hanley with that triple and the fly out, so 1 for 2. Ellis started the inning with the double. But Loge trying to frustrate the Dodgers here and keep him from scoring.
I mean, this is a big inning for both sides. I mean, if you're the Dodgers, you get a leadoff double. This is the top of your lineup. Ellis doing his job, and then you have the core of your lineup, the guys that driving the runs coming up, and that's what you're looking for. And then for the Cardinals side, Loge, your team goes ahead. This is that shutdown inning that you're looking for to try to get your team, put that 0 back up on the board to get your guys back into the dugout. So this is a very, very big inning for both sides.
Well, you got 2 good hitters in Kemp, struck him out, got Ethier to fly routinely to center. Ramirez looks at a strike. Hanley Ramirez, a lifetime .388 hitter against the Dodgers. It's another good reason for LA to make that trade. It's only 18 games, but it's almost 400. Now he's one of them. The 1-1. That just missed. 2 balls and a strike.
Kyle Loge working outside with that fastball, now coming back in, setting your sights back in, letting the hitter know, letting Ramirez know that I can work both sides of the plate. Sets up a hitter that he can go now back soft away. He can even double up and try to go in there.
Hard ground ball foul. The scouting report on Hanley the last couple of seasons is breaking stuff away and hard stuff in around the knuckles. That's how he's been making a lot of outs. But he is a .300 career hitter. Trying to tie it up for the Dodgers here in the 6th inning. The 2-2 from Loge. Fouled away.
And I'm wondering if that may be changing, because you talked about him being now free. He said being free and easy. When you have a big ballpark as a hitter, you're thinking, I got to drive it out of there. The only way I can drive it is using everything I've got. I got to pull the ball. You see this at a home run derby, for example. You see guys always pulling it, and when, like Matt Kemp, for example, his power is the right center, but the home run derby, he was trying to pull everything, and we know his power is the opposite way. But when you're thinking, okay, I want to hit that long ball, I got to pull it. Well, Hanley Ramirez, in a big ballpark, I got to pull. And when you're pulling the ball or thinking about pulling the ball, you're susceptible to soft pitches away because you're pulling off of those, off the breaking ball, and hard stuff in because your swing gets long. Because you're pulling, that front shoulder is pulling out, the back kind of casts out. That's a longer swing, and so you get jammed in those hands off the knuckles. When I'm thinking free and easy, I can stay inside the ball. I'm not afraid to drive the ball to right field, left field, because I have that power and I can hit it out in all powers. Those numbers start changing.
Check swing. He did not offer the appeal, and no swing, says Marty Foster. 3-2. He came close, but we'll take another look.
Well, this is a good pitch by Kyle Lohse. We'll see if Hanley's able to hold up there. I think he just held up there. I think they were asking two things. Where was that pitch? And two, did he go? It's a good pitch that was just off the plate.
So a full count. Ellis still pinned to second base. Swinging a ground ball up the middle and a base hit. He comes through again. Ellis rounding. He is in to score, and Hanley Ramirez has his second hit with the Dodgers tonight and ties the game 2-2.
Well, we look at the way he tried to attack him. He's going the soft stuff away, like we mentioned, and he's able to get that strike. Then hard stuff in on the hands, try to come in. Then he kind of came in with a changeup in on it that he fouls, then goes away up with a fastball. Fastball, seeing if he can get that corner. Then you talked about soft stuff away. Well, we mentioned about free and easy. That one, he didn't pull off of that ball. He was just taking his hit and went right up the middle. And because of that approach, he was able to come up with a big RBI for his new ball club.
He is not taking any time to fit in. 2 for 3 tonight, a single and a triple. Here's Loney trying to keep it going. He's driven in a run with a sac fly and lined to second. So we're tied 2-2 here in the top of the 6th inning in St. Louis. That was the first hit tonight for the Dodgers with men in scoring position. They had gone 0 for 6. And it's Hanley Ramirez picking up his 49th RBI. Down and in the ball. I don't think it's a case with all the smiling and the positive gestures we've seen from Hanley of a guy who is miserable being a member of the Marlins. In fact, he said that was the only home I ever knew. I think it's clear he was miserable in that new ballpark. It had gotten in his head, and it was affecting his offensive numbers.
Look, when you're not comfortable in your home ballpark, it makes it difficult even when you're away, because oftentimes when you're going away, it's a new batter's box, it's a new batter's eye, it's a different environment you're not used to. So sometimes you can struggle on the road and you're thinking, I can't wait to get home because I knew I'll be successful. I'll find it back home. When you're not comfortable there, you're going, well, I got to find it on the road. That's not a good feeling as a hitter.
Caught by Craig at first base. A wicked shot by Loney. So it took a very nice play to get him, but Hanley Ramirez comes through for the second time tonight. A wicked shot by Loney, a frozen rope. Craig was ready, but we're tied 2-2. Last half of the 6th inning coming up here, and a nice night in St. Louis, tied 2-2. We checked the pulse of the National League. The Mets very low. They've lost 11 of their last 12. The Giants, well, they're high, 9-3 since the All-Star break. Posey has really been cooking. The Reds also, with that outstanding homestand right out of the break, 10-2 and 7-2 without Joey Votto. I don't know how much longer that can last, but they've done an excellent job without him. John Jay takes strike one. He's gone 0 for 2 tonight with a strikeout and a tapper. Back to the mound, Hanley Ramirez, the new acquisition of the Dodgers, with 2 big hits tonight. As an RBI, he scored a run. 0-2 on Jay. Matt Holliday next, and then Carlos Beltran. So a good part of the lineup for the Cardinals to grab some more runs. Although I guess any part of their lineup is. It's the top scoring lineup in the National League.
Well, that's a luxury that you have for this Cardinal lineup. It's, you know, any point guys get on, they find ways to get on and drive the ball.
Broken bat, slicer foul. So Jay will need a new one here. Our in-game box score tonight. Freeze with a double. And how about that? Kyle Lowe, the pitcher, with an RBI. And came on a sacrifice fly. Still 1-2 on Jay. Jay swinging a good bat coming into the ball game. He was 7 for his previous 11 before the 0 for 2 so far. And that's in there. He got him looking. 82 miles an hour and struck him out admiring the pitch. One man gone here in the 6th inning. We toss it back to the studio and Carl Ravitch.
All right, OB, seesaw we go. Texas, Boston, Holland to Pedroia.
Pedroia.
Throw 86 changeup, I reckon. Right out over the plate, where Petey likes it.
Second home run, last 50 at bats for Pedroia. 3-3, 7th inning there.
Boy, that ball can carry in Texas.
Oh, that's because Mulder says there's a jet stream there.
Now, we've probably done, I don't know what, 10 games with Mark Mulder. In every ballpark we've done a game with Mark, he swears there's a jet stream.
Right, all of them.
Every single one.
Every single one of them.
It's not physically possible, is it?
Wow. According to pitchers, it is.
We'll find out next week at Fenway, because Mark will be with us for the Red Sox and the Detroit Tigers.
And I can't wait for that one, because I'm going to ask him. I mean, I played my, long time, numerous years at Fenway Park. I want to ask Mulder, where is the jet stream? I just want to know. I didn't know that.
Holiday has walked and struck out. Holiday came into the ball game hitting .422 with 28 RBIs in his last 31 games. And he's been doubling like a madman as he takes one high. He's really been hitting everything. Nice big crowd here in a very hot night, sweltering night in St. Louis. The 2-2. Chased that one and just got a piece of it. He's still alive, 2-2 to count. I mentioned this earlier. Holiday with a .344 lifetime average against the Dodgers. Roberto Clemente was another guy who really carved him up. He hit .345. Popped high down the right field line. Ethier racing onto the warning track and reaches down. Boy, he made a fine play. A long way to go, too, for Andre Ethier to catch that ball. And there are 2 gone. Into foul territory, but he chased it down.
He went a long way. You see him calling that ball and keeping his eye on that and having the awareness, knowing where the fence is. I mean, going into foul territory, that's difficult. You don't know exactly where that fence is. It's also a low fence. And you also know that your second baseman and first baseman are going after that ball. Great play by Ethier.
So that sends up Carlos Beltran 0 for 2 tonight. He has reached on an error. Carlos trying to extend a hitting streak to 7 in a row. He's been Mr. Clutch for St. Louis. He leads the National League with 12 game-winning RBIs. Pops that foul. Although it should be said, a game-winning RBI could take place in the first inning.
I didn't know that. I was wondering how.
Yeah. You could hit a home run.
Okay.
Solo shot. The team wins 1-0. Guess what? That's a game-winning RBI.
I see. I think most people assume that game-winning RBI is like that walk-off RBI. That wins the game.
But that is not the case with this particular statistic. So I'm actually sorry I brought it up. Here's the 0-2. Swung on and missed, and down goes Beltran. Good inning for Harang. Gave up a run in the 5th inning, but nothing doing here in the 6th inning. Cruz, Ellis, and Harang due up for the Dodgers. We're tied 2-2. The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series returns to ESPN with the Brickyard 400. Championship contenders Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Tony Stewart are looking to continue their momentum and make a statement at Indianapolis. The Brickyard 400 presented by Golden Corral. Coverage beginning next Sunday at noon on ESPN. Great to have you with us on this Wednesday night from the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri. We are tied up 2-2 in the 7th, just getting the 7th inning underway. Luis Cruz 0 for 2 tonight. He'll be followed by A.J. Ellis and then the pitcher Harang. Kyle Loesch trying for his 11th win. Now, he hasn't given up more than 2 runs in any of his last 6 starts. He's 4-0 in that span with an ERA of 2.16. Line shot, base hit into center by Cruz. He's quickly aboard to start the 7th inning. And for more on the shortstop situation with the Los Angeles Dodgers, let's bring in Tim Kurkjian.
You guys have talked about this, but when Hanley Ramirez came to the park today, Don Mattingly said, do you want to play shortstop? I want you to play shortstop. And he said, well, I haven't played it in a year. Give me a couple days to get it figured out again. And when he does, he's going to become the shortstop, Mattingly told me. And then when Dee Gordon comes off the disabled list, which is probably going to be in about another month, then Ramirez is going to move back to third. I talked to Gordon today. He's got a cast on his right wrist. He gets off the DL on August the 2nd. He's going to need some time after that. He's going to go on a rehab assignment. But that's the plan. And Hanley said, look, I'll do whatever you want. I'll move back and forth. But he said, I just need a couple days to get acclimated to playing shortstop again.
Well, there's D before the game. Yeah, I can't throw with that cast on, but getting loose, taking some ground balls here in St. Louis. Here's A.J. Ellis. He's torn into a double. He's also grounded out to short.
I'm surprised that Hanley said that, where it took me a couple days, which I'm surprised. I understand the reason I'm surprised, because I know when I was playing with the Dodgers and Furcal got hurt, and they, Joe Torre came up to me like, want to play short? Yes, absolutely. I'll go out there. I feel like I'll have no trouble going out there. And just because, and I felt such alive when I was back out there at shortstop. It helped me offensively as well, because now you're back in that game. I felt like I was in control of the game once again.
Yeah, back in your comfort zone.
Back in my comfort zone. I wasn't thinking about so many things like I do at other positions that are new for me. Everything just came instinctively.
No pitch here, by the way, as time was granted.
My movements out there were instinctive. I wasn't thinking about that. When the ball was hit, I knew where to go. And once again, it's just that feeling when you were at shortstop. I just felt like it was my game, offensively, defensively, like I was going to be a part of it, or I can be a major impact in this game. And I know Hanley Ramirez is the same way. It doesn't leave you when you're a shortstop.
Well, they're doing a little work. The trainer on his right hand seemed to be bandaging up the knuckle area of his right hand. Inside on Ellis. The count now 2-0. Leadoff man on. Cruz at first base. The pitcher is on deck. And that pitcher, Harang, has held St. Louis to just 2 hits tonight. The Cardinals are getting their bullpen going. That's in there for a called strike.
Well, both pitchers have been very stingy with runs, and they're not afraid to put, the Dodgers aren't afraid to put guys in motion. You see guys warming up in the bullpen over there for St. Louis. But, they're not afraid to hit and run. The Dodgers aren't afraid to hit and run, put some pressure on that defense.
The 2-1. Check swing. Did he go? No, he didn't. Marty Foster said no swing. Now 3-1. We'll look again.
And that was a close one right there. He was able to hold that barrel back. I wonder if that had any influence, because that barrel stayed back and didn't come forward. His body was forward and the arm seemed like it was forward, but the barrel wasn't coming there, and I wonder if that had any influence on the call over there at first base.
In there for a called strike. What the umpires say about check swings, how they determine how they rule on it, whether the batter went or not. is whether in their mind, in their judgment, the batter committed on the swing. I think they got that call right. I agree with you. 3-2. Cruz edging off first base. Not running. Ground ball to the shortstop for call. Schumacher on the first to Craig for the twin killing. 6-4-3 double play. 2 down and a pitcher coming up. Right now back to the studio for an update. Here's Karl Ravech.
All right, there'll be only one late game. Started at 9:40 Eastern time. Arizona. Jason Kubel having a year.
All he does is hit homers.
All he does is home runs. That one's gone. D-backs and Rockies tied 1-1. He's got 22 on the season.
Ravi, thank you very much. And here's the pitcher hitting for himself now. Harang is 0 for 2. Are you a little bit surprised that they didn't have Cruz in motion?
I was. I thought with 3-2, and especially with the eye that Ellis has, as good as an eye as he has, and the walks he has, that they weren't having him run to try to stay out of that double play.
1-1 on Harang. Of course, you've got that man behind the plate, 4-time Gold Glover, Yadier Molina. He is a stop sign. Bobby Abreu would bat next here in the 7th inning if it's still going. Flicked foul by Harang.
But oftentimes when you know you have a guy like Yadier, I think more when you send the guy in motion, you're not anticipating your guy is going to strike out. That's not what you're thinking about, to strike him out, throw him out. You have confidence that the guy will put the ball in play. Don Mattingly having confidence in the guy, they put it in play, but just try to stay out of the double play in case of that ground ball that we just saw.
Now Harang, if nothing else, is making Loge throw some extra pitches here on a very hot night. He's up to 102 pitches.
And Harang has had some good swings on Loge. He's put the ball in play a couple of times.
He has. Bullpen looking on for the Cardinals. The 1-2. Now 2 balls, 2 strikes. Fairly long at bat here for Aaron Harang. The Dodgers trying to close the gap in the West on the San Francisco Giants, who've been a hot club. And that one misses for ball 3. How about this at bat? 3-2 on Harang. He's really extending Kyle Loge. Here comes pitch number 105. Loops this one foul. Popped again into the stands.
Well, he's having a good at bat here. He's fouling off a lot of pitches and out there, but I'm also wondering if this long at bat, we'll see how this at bat, what the result is, but also if it affects Harang being out there. He's out there in the heat for a long time here, taking some hacks, and he still has to come back and pitch.
This is the 8th pitch of the at bat. The 3-2 again. Cut on and missed. He finally gets him. So in the end, he faces only 3 batters, and it remains a 2-2 game as we go to the bottom of the 7th inning. It'll be Craig, Molina, and the World Series hero David Freese, who's already doubled and scored tonight.
It is that time, 7th inning stretch time. Yeah, Lindbergh up, John Kruk, Karl Ravech, Nats, Mets, all Steven Strasburg, all the time.
Well, he was dynamite. He got ahead with his fastball, threw his fastball a lot more today than normal, but when he got ahead, that nasty changeup reared its ugly head.
Yeah, at one point he struck out 5 consecutive. He ended up with 11 Ks in the game. His innings total goes to 117 1/3. As the Nats are now a season-high 19 games over 500. Angels began the day with the same record as the Dodgers. Mike Trout had a big game again.
Shocker.
Kind of gets boring. He hit his 16th. Torrey Hunter even bigger, 4 for 5 and 11 home runs. 11-6 the final.
Ravi, John, thank you very much. Back in St. Louis, it's a 2-2 tie as we get ready for the last half of the 7th inning. Nomar Garciaparra, Dave O'Brien, and Tim Kirkshin with you. Tony Gwynn takes over in left field for Bobby Abreu for Los Angeles. And that is the only change. Both starters still on. In fact, Aaron Harang has allowed just 2 hits in the game, although the Cardinals have produced 2 runs in a tie ball game here in the 7th. Craig has walked and struck out tonight. He'll lead off for St. Louis. He swings, hits a high fly to left center, racing over Kemp and Gwynn, and Gwynn wants it to make the catch. Nomar, I'm not sure exactly what happened. Actually, I do. We've been begging for food all night, and the folks here came through in St. Louis. This is from Sports Service, Kathy and Chef Norman Taylor. What do we have?
Well, we have some pretzel wrapped bratwurst and hot dogs, and we have some cinnamon pretzels
Man,
here.
those smell good.
They do smell good.
Those smell great.
Wow. We said we were hungry,
Yeah.
and they have taken care of us.
Food
Thank you very
is
much.
great here at Busch Stadium. It's terrific, especially when you get your hands on it for free. Thanks to the
you
folks
got
at
it free?
Sports
I had to pay.
No, you did not.
No, they took care of us. It was
Molina
quite nice of them.
has singled and lined out to left. That's our between innings snack. Everybody eating well here at Busch Stadium tonight. Breaking ball in there for a called strike. David Freese on deck. Harang has pitched in Oakland, Cincinnati, San Diego, and now for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's from Southern California. He's a native of San Diego. 1-2.
And in case you're wondering, OB, yeah, that cinnamon pretzel is really good.
Thanks.
Yep, I'm here.
Punch foul back out of play. One-two waved at a pitch in the dirt, and he strikes out. Down he goes. Molina fans 2 away as we take a look at our game track brought to you by DirecTV. Hanley Ramirez has made a mark right away. His first at bat, he tripled. Thought he had a home run. Then an RBI single up the middle, so he's 2 for 3. He's also scored a run. St. Louis scoring 2 runs. David Freese driving in a run. And then scoring another. This game is tied up 2-2. Hanley Ramirez right out of the gate, helping out the Dodger attack, and here's Freese taking one high for ball 1. He's hit the ball hard twice tonight. 307, 14 homers for the right-hand hitter. 1-1.
Aaron Harang still has some really good movement on his pitches. He's done an excellent job, especially that last inning. Once your team tied the game, he put that 0 up on the board to get his team back in that dugout.
2 balls, 1 strike. So 97 pitches for Harang. His opponent Loge, and they were teammates together in Cincinnati back in 06 and 07. Loge has gone over 100. Here's the 2-1. Check swing, loop foul. 2-2. Game 3 of a 4-game series, which concludes tomorrow afternoon. They have split the first 2 games. Here's the 2-2 to Freese. Now a full count on him. He's gotten good looks at Aaron Harang.
And he's laid off some tough pitches. He's in his last 2 at bats. I mean, he has crushed the ball. And if he gets a fastball.
High chop to the shortstop. Cruz has to wait on it, but throws on to get him, and the side is retired. So Harang continues to mold him down. He's tossing a 2-hitter. Kemp will be the 3rd man up as we go to the 8th inning, tied 2-2 in St. Louis. ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by the makers of One A Day Men's, the official multivitamin of Major League Baseball, specially formulated for men. Well, they always draw a big crowd here in St. Louis. And on a red-hot Wednesday night, they've seen a good ball game, tied 2-2. As we go to the 8th inning, it'll be the top of the order here for the Dodgers. A new pitcher on the mound now for St. Louis. The right-hander Mitchell Boggs taking over for Kyle Loge, who went 7. He scattered 7 hits and gave up 2 runs. He will have no decision, but he pitched awfully well. And here's Gwynn taking outside for ball 1.
Well, Mitchell Boggs is coming at you with a mid-90s fastball and a hard slider. He's a fastball slider pitcher, but he will challenge you with that fastball to get ahead.
Gwynn hitting .243, no homers, 17 RBIs. And takes a fastball low. Mark Ellis on deck, and then Kemp. Don Mattingly batting his new acquisition, Hanley Ramirez, in the 5 spot, and he has tripled and singled tonight. Seven hits tonight for Los Angeles, and that's a strike over the inside corner. Did you finish up the rest of that pretzel?
That pretzel was good. It was very good. How was that pretzel wrapped hot dog?
Outstanding. I mean, it wasn't good. It was outstanding. As far as pretzel wrapped hot dogs go, that might be the best I've ever had. Check swing in tight for a ball. Now 3-1. Truthfully, it's the first pretzel wrapped hot dog I've ever had, but it was the best.
But after having that one, you'd go back and get another one. It was that good.
Planning on it.
Yep.
Boggs with a 3-1. Hammered but foul. So full count on Gwynn.
And Tony Gwynn is having a good at bat right here, leading off this inning. Got himself into 2 hitters counts, 2-0, and then 3-1. First of all, waiting to see if Boggs would throw a strike. And then once he got that strike, getting a pitch when the 3-1, letting it go. I mean, his job as a leadoff hitter, just trying to get on base somehow.
Well, the 6th pitch of the at bat will not be made here. He asks for time, and he gets it from Jeff Kellogg. These teams have not had many chances to score. The Dodgers have only stranded 4 men all night. The Cardinals just 2. 3-2 on the ground to the right side. Schumacher with the easy hop and throws him out. 1 man gone. Well, the crowd tonight here in St. Louis, 37,841 braving the extreme heat. And it was uncomfortably hot today, well over 100. Even when the game started, it was over 100 degrees. The Cardinal fans are a very tough lot. They want to come out and see their ball club, and they support their team so well. They come from everywhere, all throughout the Midwest. And they stay sometimes for several ball games, entire series. It's not just come in for 1 game and go home.
You hear so many Cardinal players talk about how much they love their fans, but even opposing teams that come in, they talk about how great these fans are, how much they respect the game.
I've seen it. I've been here with other clubs in the past as a broadcaster and walked across from the hotel to Busch Stadium with, say, the number 3 catcher, who was just called up for September from the minor leagues, and the Cardinal fans are stopping and asking him to sign autographs. They know exactly who he is. So well informed. Little trickler foul here by Ellis.
And not only are they well informed, but they'll also appreciate a great play from the opposing team. Yeah, opposing player makes a great diving catch in the outfield, does something well in the infield. They'll come up and they'll clap. They'll give him an ovation, well-deserved ovation. Very respectful of the game. Great fans.
Very much. Ellis 1 for 3 with a double. Swings, gets a piece of that, tips it into the mid of Molina, and he hangs on for the strikeout. So 2 gone, and here comes Kemp.
Well, the main part of this Dodger lineup in Matt Kemp, Kyle Loge has done a good job in his at-bats of keeping them off balance. And here's off-speed stuff away, and you see Kemp lunging at that ball, and he came back with it again. Once again, that breaking ball on the outer half, when he had Kemp with 2 strikes and gets him to lunge at it. Wonder if it's a different at bat now with Kemp when he's facing a guy like Mitchell Boggs, who will challenge you with that fastball. He's a fastball slider guy.
So Kemp 0 for 3, 2 strikeouts, and a tapper to second.
And that's the pitch. That was the pitch right there that I'm sure Matt Kemp, you see him shaking his head a little bit. That was the one where he goes, I just missed that ball. That's the pitch I wanted to drive to right center, where his power is.
Is it hard not to think, I'm not going to get another one like that? I won't see another pitch like that.
Well, you're also thinking, what did I do to miss that? It's not just, you know, you're thinking in your head, God, I missed that. That was my pitch. But you're thinking mechanically, what I do? Did I pull my front shoulder, whatever it may be? Did I drop my hands? Going, if I get that pitch again, I'm going to make sure I do everything right.
High fly, center field. Jay has room. This is going to be a very fast inning for Mitchell Boggs coming out of that bullpen. He gets him 1, 2, 3. So that's all for Los Angeles. Cardinals coming up here in a 2-2 tie in the bottom of the 8th in St. Louis. Oh, we've got plenty of contenders coming up. Our ESPN game starting Sunday. The Red Sox and the Yankees. Ichiro, of course, now in pinstripes. On Monday, the Angels and the Rangers. Trout has just been sensational on Wednesday. Tigers at Boston. Miguel Cabrera with 81 runs batted in to lead the American League, just in front of Josh Hamilton. Well, Harang stays on the hill, and he's only given up 2 hits. Skip Schumacher is 0 for 2 in this one.
Well, we talked about how potent this Cardinal lineup is, 1 through 8 guys getting on base, all of them. But I mean, they're just 2 and 8 in games this year when they're tied going into the 8th inning.
In for a strike in Schumacher.
So as Schumacher up the bat, your leadoff guy, trying to figure out one way just to get a rally going and getting on base somehow.
Well, now 3-1. Matt Carpenter is on deck. He'll hit for the pitcher Boggs. Harang has had excellent control. He's only walked 2, but one of them cost him. And he delivers a strike to fill up the count. That was Alan Craig. You walked him to lead off the 2nd inning, and he would score a run. 3-2 here on Schumacher. He's hit the ball well all year, hitting .310. Here comes the 3-2 pitch now from the big righty. And he did walk him. That didn't work out so well in the 2nd inning. Time for an update. Back to the studio. Here's Carl Ravitch.
It's kind of night it was for the Blue Jays. Jeff Mathis, who's a backup catcher, now throwing, and
recording out.
That's all you had to do. When it's 16-zip, you just want to end it. And they did. They lose 16-0 to the A's. Coco Crisp has a big day. 2 homers.
2 for Coco. Well, we've not had one in this game. We're tied up 2-2. They're going to pull back Carpenter and bring up Descalso to hit in the pitcher's spot. So Carpenter was originally in the on-deck circle. Now Daniel Descalso, a .235 hitter. Presumably he's a better bunter. Rafael Furcal on deck. The Cardinals have the go-ahead run with nobody out at first base. And he squares the bunt, pops it up, but foul for strike 1. Harang now up to 108 pitches.
You can see what Descalso has done against Harang in his career. 2 for 3 with a strikeout. Right now his job was to just get that bunt down.
Ramirez creeping in from third. Hanley Ramirez at third base tonight. And he'll charge on the bunt.
Playing in, he's seeing if he squares around, charging hard to see if he can get, if he does bunt it his way, to try to get the lead runner at second base.
Drops down the bunt. Pitcher has to field it. Underhand toss gets him. And down to second is Schumacher. So Descalso comes off the bench and puts down a fine bunt. And now the Dodgers are facing a situation where St. Louis has a potential winning run out there. In this situation, the go-ahead run here in the bottom of the 8th inning with only one man out.
Well, excellent job by Descalso getting that bunt down, getting the guy in the scoring position. You got Furcal coming up. I mean, here's a guy who has 41 RBIs, and his 41 are ranked first in the NL from a leadoff spot.
How about that? The third leadoff batter to reach tonight. First 2 scored. Furcal trying to pick him up. He's gone 0 for 3. He's popped up twice and struck out looking. One man out. Schumacher at second. And Furcal takes a strike.
Yeah, Furcal may have popped up twice and struck out, but all of a sudden you become a different hitter when you see that guy in scoring position. You have a guy over there. You're seeing this also the same pitcher that I've seen 3 times. I'm like, all right, this 4th time, I'm not going to let him get me 4 times, and here's a chance for me to knock this guy in. This is when I want that big at bat and make a difference. I've already seen you 3 times. Got to make my adjustment.
Time asked for and granted, and now Ellis will head on out to the pitcher's mound. 2 runs, 7 hits, and an error for the Dodgers. 2 runs, just 2 hits, no errors for St. Louis. Cardinals, the highest scoring team in the National League. You see there, Harang up to 111 pitches. On a night that started at 102 degrees, that is a heavy workload. You wonder if that leadoff walk of Schumacher was a sign he was tiring. Here's the 1-1. Bounced up there. Nice stop by Ellis. Two and 1. The Dodgers do have 2 working in the bullpen. Jay is on deck. Here's the 2-1. Swing and a foul off himself. 2-2. So for call, a little gimpy.
And for call, this is that pitch. His eyes get real big. He thinks that's the ball he's going to be able to drive, and he fouls that ball off the inside part of his foot. Gosh, those just leave a mark. Even up here, I feel those. So just remember how painful those balls were when you fouled them off your ankle, your shin, top of your foot.
Furcal drove in 3 runs last night in the Cardinal win. 3-2, and he has driven in 41 runs this season. That leads all National League leadoff men. Still trying to walk off some of that pain. 3-2, 1 out. Go ahead run at second. 2-2 tie in the 8th. And inside, he walked it. Man, was that close. Oh, did Harang want that one?
He did. He makes, this is the pitch. This is the situation where you as a pitcher go, this is a big pitch. Even A.J. Ellis, you want this one. He front doors, gets some froze, and you see Furcal bailing out on that pitch, and that ball, Harang felt like he caught the inside part of that corner. That was a huge pitch that he really needed there. Excellent pitch.
Now, Scott Elbert is warmed up if he wants to bring him in, if Mattingly wants to go to him here. But would he take the ball out of Harang's hand, especially after such a close pitch? And indeed he will. That's it for Aaron Harang. So he leaves behind 2 men on and 1 man out in a 2-2 tie. The Dodgers go to the bullpen. We'll be back in St. Louis in a moment. Well, behind the coach is Aaron Harang, and he has to come out of the ball game after walking his second man. The question is, did he walk for a call, or should this have been a strike?
I mean, this is a huge pitch in the ball game, and I think that was a strike. I think that caught the inside part of the plate, came back in.
Here's Scott Elbert coming out of the bullpen, a left-hander, to take on John Jay, who Harang got 3 times rather easily, by the way. Elbert with a 2.45 ERA. Walks have been something of a problem for him. In 29 in the third, he has walked 12 men. Only 1 out. Tied 2-2 in the 8th. Cardinals pressing to take the lead. They've got Schumacher and for a call on the bases, so good speed for St. Louis. And Halladay on deck. 2-0.
You talked about walks possibly being an issue for Elbert. We saw John Jay square around on that first pitch. I wonder if he was just squaring around just to try to distract the pitcher coming in to see if he can work. Because I really don't want my guy right now squaring around and laying down a bunt. I want to see you try to knock this guy in and try to get the go-ahead run.
Got a 300 hitter up there too. Ball 3.
And like I said, I wonder if it was just for show, just to kind of see if he can rattle the pitcher. And like as you mentioned, we know he's having trouble with walks. They have the same scouting report. They recognize that he has issue with walks, and if he can get a walk and bring up that guy on deck. And Matt Halladay, we talked about how hot he's been since the middle of June. I'd like to see that if I were the Cardinals.
3-0, he's taking all the way. By the way, when Furcal took ball 4, the look on his face indicated he thought he had been struck out.
And his eyes look, he also took it very slow. He looked at that ball, looked like his eyes got really big, like, whew, I think I got away with one there.
3-1 into the dirt, and he walked him, and the bases are loaded. That's 3 walks by the Dodger pitching staff here in the bottom of the 8th in a tie game. And Matt Holladay's coming up. Halladay in the game has gone 0 for 2, and here comes Don Mattingly again. So Albert comes on and walks the only man that he faces, and it's Halladay next with the bases loaded.
Standing now. All that's
so we're tied 2-2. Ron Belisario coming out of the bullpen, a big right-hander from Venezuela, 3-1. And a 2.75 ERA. He steps right into the Hornets' nest. Only 1 down, and the bases loaded for the Cardinals. And Matt Halladay in the box, and swings and lines one, maybe into a double play. Indeed, a twin killing. How about that to end the inning? A bullet. Ellis made the play to his right. And Harang has to be delighted, because the game remains tied 2-2 as we prepare to go to the 9th inning. A rocket by Halladay, but into the double play. Hanley Ramirez, day 1 as a Dodger, as he flew in from Miami to be with his new teammates, signed some autographs, and right away a triple in his very first at bat. Later an RBI single. So he has scored a run. He has driven in another. He's contributed to the Dodger cause tonight. We're tied 2-2, and he will bat second here in the 9th up against the right-hander Jason Mott, who comes out of the Cardinal bullpen.
And he comes at you with a hard and heavy mid-upper 90s fastball, and he tries to put you away with a power slider.
Here's Andre Ethier bending back. First pitch up and in. He has doubled, flied out, and struck out. 1 for 3 tonight. The Dodgers getting out of a bases loaded 1-out situation with Matt Halladay at the plate, hitting a seed. It was caught on a rangy play to his right by Ellis, the second baseman, and right into a double play. High fly right field, hitting to the corner. Beltran on the move, and he makes the catch. A nice running, graceful play by Carlos Beltran for out number 1. And here comes Hanley Ramirez for the 4th time tonight in Dodger blue. Hanley with 14 home runs as a member of the Miami Marlins. Tonight 2 for 3, a triple and an RBI single. He wound up number 2 in Marlins history in home runs as he foul tips it into the mitt.
And we heard Tim Kirchin talk about him being free and easy now that he's away from that big Marlins ballpark. But here's a guy you want to be free and easy with and allow Jason Mott to supply the power. Just put that ball, make contact, because his power supply the distance.
1-1. Well, what could be more dramatic than a game-winning home run in your first game with the Dodgers, unless, of course, it's in the bottom of the ninth at Dodger Stadium. Ground ball back to the pitcher instead. Mott spears it and throws him out. 2 down. So no drama this time for Hanley. 2 away for James Loney. Due up in the bottom of the ninth for the Cardinals. It's Beltran, Craig, and Molina. And if anyone should reach, David Freese, who knows a thing or two about dramatic home runs.
I would say so. I would say he's had a few in his career.
Loney 0 for 2. He's driven in a run with a sacrifice fly. That was way back in the second inning. He's the man who picked up Hanley Ramirez, who tripled off the wall. Two runs on 7 hits for the Dodgers. 2 runs, just 2 hits for the Cardinals. St. Louis loaded up the bases in the bottom of the 8th inning on 3 walks. There's also a sacrifice bunt in there, all before the inning-ending double play. Punch foul.
In the box score, you'll see that inning-ending double play, but the Matt Holliday had, I mean, he hit a rocket. That's something that, you know, as a player, it's tough to deal with because of, gosh, I did everything right. I squared that ball up. I didn't try to pull it. I stayed with it, and I just hit it right at somebody.
Fly ball at Holliday starting in. Now he makes the catch, and the side is retired. So the Dodgers go quietly. We are headed to the bottom of the ninth, and the Cardinals hoping to make a lot of noise in their home ballpark. 2-2 tie. Back to the studio. Here's Carl Ravitch.
All right, OB, get some highlights out of the way here with John Kruk at Sports Center coming up after the game.
Lucky sevens.
There were a lot of sevens in this game for the Atlanta Braves. They didn't get to the 7 runs, but what they did do was have a pitcher who gave up 7 walks. They had 7 steals allowed. He did strike out 7. And yes, when the Braves get their 7th, it ends. 4 sevens across the board. A weird game for Hanson, who ends up getting no decision in 5 innings, but they get the win. Miami
Odd game. Odd game.
This is a weird one, too, although the way the Phillies have been playing, if you're down or even tied, you're going to win in extra innings or late.
Yeah, they've been making it exciting the last 3 games against Milwaukee.
A Bud walk-off hero in that game. And now Chicago and Pittsburgh. Dempster pitched a pretty good game, John, but he left, and he was really fired up when he left.
Yeah, he wanted to stay in the game. I mean, made a great pitch right there, and Garrett Jones just went down and got him, but no need to take him out.
So he started throwing things like that. He threw some things at the back wall. Pirates win it 3-2, avoid the sweep. Yankees and the Mariners. Jeter, professional hitter, nearly gets buzzed there. Yep. Woo. Then he steps back in and does this.
Yeah, the hanging slider after knocking him down, or throwing inside. It's really not a good pitch, Carl.
Not a good formula for success. Without Alex Rodriguez, though, the Yankees managed to score some runs thanks to Mr. Nix in the nicks of time.
He and Chavez are going to be the platoon with A-Rod out.
That was a bases loaded, base clearing double, and the Yankees do beat the Mariners 5-2 off tomorrow. Host the Red Sox on Friday. You'll see the Red Sox-Yankees Sunday night on ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball game. Viciedo, Rios, they're all hitting the ball hard for the White Sox.
That could get them in the postseason.
They win at 8-2. So you're up to date. Again, Sports Center after the game, and back to you, Dave and Nomar.
All right, Ravi, thank you very much. Carlos Beltran already in the box here. Last half of the 9th inning in a 2-2 tie, and the first pitch in there for a strike from Belisario. He benefited from that line drive off the bat of Holiday into the double play that concluded the 8th inning. Beltran, Craig, Molina. And it's quickly 0-2 on Carlos. Switch hitter has popped out to the catcher, reached on an error by the first baseman, and struck out. See, they're 1 for 1 against this right-hander, and that one left the park. Cut on and missed, and down he goes. Belisario makes very quick work of Beltran. Sports Center coming your way next as soon as we finish up here in St. Louis. Why the Yankees won't miss A-Rod. Strasburg was on tonight. When is he not? And the latest on Dwight Howard. All to come on Sports Center.
I just keep shaking my head when I think of Strasburg and the whole pitch, the inning limit. So it'll be interesting down the stretch. I mean, we're all going to keep talking about it. Why wouldn't we?
Well, the Nationals going into play today with a 4.5 game lead on Atlanta. Here's Alan Craig. He's walked, struck out, and fly to center. Molina on deck. Now, Craig can end it with one swing. Certainly Molina can. And if anyone should reach, David Freese very capable. We're tied 2-2 in the bottom of the 9th. Inside.
Well, Belisario on the hill. I mean, he has such a hard sinking fastball, mid-90s fastball coming at you, that you really as a hitter want to look for that ball above the knees, because something down below the knees usually just falls out of the zone.
The 2-0 fouled right there at the plate. 2-1. Craig had early season injury trouble. In fact, started the season on the DL, recovering from off-season knee surgery. He fractured his right kneecap. And he missed time with a hamstring back in June. Despite the time missed, he's hit 14 homers. And now 3-1. So he has the good hitters count. Molina on deck. Will he get something to drive here? 1 out, base is empty. In there for a strike. 94 and a full count.
That's the ball you want to. You're in that hitter's count. You want to let it fly, but this ball had so much movement on it. Watch the movement on this ball, where it starts off and then down, drops down in the zone and just catches that inside corner. I mean, those are ones that if you put a swing on and you hit it, you foul off your foot.
Chopper to third. Hanley Ramirez handles it, guns it, and close, but got him. 2 down. So it's up to Molina if the Cardinals are going to win it here in the 9th inning. He is single, line to left, and struck out tonight. 1 for 3. And an immensely popular player here in St. Louis. Out here with 15 home runs this season. That is a career high. Chopper to third. Knocked down, and that went off to the shortstop. Cruz, who throws and got him. On the deflection, Ramirez to Cruz to Loney. Pinball baseball. Ramirez mishandled a chance, but Cruz never quit on it. He came up gunning, got rid of it in a heartbeat, and on the bounce, they nip Molina. And Ramirez gets a helping hand from a new teammate.
Here in our Baseball Tonight studios, John Kruk, Carl Ravitch, Nelson Cruz in a 4-3 game. That's the jet stream.
Yeah, that is the jet stream that Mulder talks about. And Buck Showalter and everyone else that's been there.
The Rangers do win it by a score of 5-3.
Jet stream, jet stream. You know, Mark Mulder was listening earlier tonight when we were busting on about that jet stream business, and he said, I don't think there is a jet stream at Fenway because I never lost there. 2-2 as we go to the 10th inning.
Yeah, he made sure he let me know that. He's like, yeah, there's no jet stream there. I never lost, so. that made me feel good because that means that all my home runs were legit there if there's no jet stream.
At least at Fenway, yeah. Tied 2-2 to the 10th inning. Mott stays on to pitch. And Cruz, the batter, he's the man who just lent the helping hand to Hanley Ramirez on a very routine 5-6-3 put out. On the shot off Ramirez. Cruz is 1 for 3. He singled in the 7th inning. The Cardinals have to feel pretty good about themselves. They have been held to 2 hits through 9 innings, and they're still in a position where they could win a game. Ground ball right to the shortstop for Call with the dig, and he gets him. 1 man out. That'll send up A.J. Ellis, who is 1 for 3. He ripped a double back in the 5th inning, although they couldn't bring him in. Couple of ground balls stranded him out there. Well, both starters were very good. Kyle Loge went 7, gave up 2 runs, 7 hits, no decision. Aaron Harang pitched into the 8th, 7 1/3, gave up 2 runs and just 2 hits.
Both starters will have a no decision in this game, and I think deservedly so because they both did a great job and kept their teams in this ball game.
Ellis waves right through that one quickly. 0-2. Juan Rivera has come to the on deck circle for Los Angeles. A ball and 2 strikes on Ellis. So he'll hit in the 9 slot. Tenth inning here in St. Louis, and the 1-2. He wouldn't chase. 2-2. Ellis, a very, very patient hitter. Mott trying to finish him off. And in there for called strike 3. Got him looking. Well, their bullpen is pitching lights out.
And he just came right after him in that 2-2 with a fastball right down the middle of the plate. I mean, just froze Ellis on that pitch.
Well, now they're going to bring up Juan Uribe. And he will hit instead of Rivera, so they switched up the on deck batters. And the veteran Uribe will march up to hit with 2 down here in the 10th inning. By the way, 10 straight retired by the St. Louis pitching staff. Uribe hitting just 190, although he has homered twice. 190 as a pinch hitter. And he punches a foul for strike 1. He got a 93-mile-an-hour fastball there. We're tied up 2-2. When the Cardinals had the bases loaded and only 1 man out in the 8th inning, and a man who was arguably their best hitter in Matt Holliday at the plate. He hit a line drive wickedly that was caught by the second baseman Ellis. He turned it into a double play. And Holliday may be thinking about that for a while to come.
I mean, that was a rocket. I mean, he did everything right.
0-2 pitch, now ball and 2 strikes on the veteran Uribe. Tony Gwynn Jr. on deck. One-two sock toward right center. That's going to drop down for a base hit. So Uribe comes off the bench and singles with 2 down. And the Dodgers with hope of retaking the lead.
Well, Uribe doing his job, coming in with a pinch hit. All he needs is just get on base, try to keep this inning alive. Got a fastball on the outer part of the plate. Just kind of throws the hands at it, gets it off the end of the bat, and flicks it over the second baseman's head.
So he's aboard with 2 down, and Tony Gwynn who has batted once in the ball game, and that was back in the 8th inning when he grounded out to second, hitting .242. We are in the 10th in St. Louis. He checks, and it missed inside for ball 1. And of course, the son of the Hall of Famer and Padres legend Tony Gwynn. Pitch and a high fly to center, but it hangs up for Jay. And there to make the catch and retire the side. In the 10th for the Dodgers, no runs, 1 hit, 1 man left. We go to the bottom of the 10th. Dodgers 2 and the Cardinals 2. We're tied up 2-2. Bottom half of the 10th inning coming up. World Series star David Freese will be the leadoff batter. Let's go back to the World Series Game 6. That 2-run triple in the bottom of the 9th inning, tying the ball game. Again, in the bottom of the 10th inning, Freese with a solo walk-off home run in the bottom of the 11th to cap that incredible comeback. And the Cardinals would eventually win in 7. Josh Lindblom coming out of their bullpen for Los Angeles to get Freese, Schumacher, and then we shall see who bats in the 9 spot. He becomes the 3rd relief pitcher to be used by the Dodgers tonight. Makes his home in West Lafayette, Indiana. He did pitch for a time at Purdue after transferring from the University of Tennessee.
He's going to come at you with that fastball, sinking fastball, slider, curveball, and has a split to put you away with.
Freese takes a ball outside. He's 1 for 3 with a double and a run scored tonight. He is the hottest Cardinal hitter going right now. An 8-game hitting streak. Trying to hold up his swing. Did he go? He did. First base umpire Marty Foster said he swung the bat, and the count 1-1. He's hitting .306. 14 home runs, and the pitch. Poke to right and down the line. Got himself a hit. Ethier cuts it down, and it's a single to begin the 10th inning for David Freese. His 2nd hit tonight. Even when he doesn't kill it, it seems to find a home somewhere.
Well, he had a double earlier in the game by going to right field, and takes that same approach on this pitch. Fastball away, stays with it, pokes it over there, and this is all you're looking for from that guy who's leading off the inning, is just getting on base.
And Tyler Green's going to run for him. So a pinch runner. Let's see what Schumacher is up to here. Another guy who can drop down a bunt. Nobody out. Leadoff man on. 2-2, bottom of the 10th. Schumacher in this game 0 for 2 with a walk. One of the 3 Cardinals who took ball 4 in the 8th inning, yet they couldn't get a run in to untie it then. Shows bunt, spins away, and a fastball up and in.
Squares around him, and this ball right at him. Right, not only just getting his body, but getting his face out of the way of that pitch.
Little message there. Schumacher getting out quickly.
And it's tough when you see a ball that far out of the zone where you're thinking about, well, maybe I'll trick him going to hit and run, but you can't rely that he'll be around the plate after throwing that ball that far up and in. You don't want to run yourself out of this inning. You just want to get a guy over there in scoring position.
Game 3 of a 4-game series, tied 1 apiece. The finale tomorrow afternoon here at Busch Stadium. Hanley Ramirez is in close at 3rd. He's charging. A long set, and now the step off by Lindblom. Eight out of 10 is Green. Another throw over. Oh, he's going to get him, and he is picked off at first base. Oh, that's a Cardinal sin by Tyler Green. He never got back. Quick move by Lindblom, picks him off. One man out. Goodness.
When you come into pinch run, you have to make sure he's going to home, catches him leaning, and gets him out by a mile.
On the second tag.
Yeah.
I mean, he picked him off so bad, it took the second swipe to get him. Foul back here by Schumacher. So Green picked off. Obviously, there goes the bunt play and changes everything. 1 ball and 1 strike on Schumacher. 2-1. Now they've also lost Freeze for the rest of the game as Green came on to run for him. 2-1 fastball is inside. Well, the Cardinals have had an opportunity to really press the issue. It's backfired on them tonight. That's going to be in there for a called strike. Do teammates say anything when a guy gets picked off in a spot like that? I mean, he represents the potential winning run.
I mean, you know, no one has to say anything. You know, you can't get picked off in that situation. He knows he made a mistake. There's no need to kind of run salt in the wound and let him know, hey, you messed up. He's like, no kidding.
His ball 4. So Schumacher on.
If you're wondering why he got picked off, like, there's no excuse for getting picked off because you have to make sure you know the guy's sacrificing. But let me tell you, look at this front knee right here. That front knee buckles, goes first. That's what you're keying off if you're a base stealer or a runner at first base. Here's a better view. Get that knee there. That front knee goes first, so you're looking at that. In a pitcher, that's to us as a balk when you go other and you do that front knee and then come over and pick off. But in this situation, despite that, I'm not looking to steal the base. I got my guy who's going to sacrifice bunt. I cannot get picked off there no matter if the guy has a balk move, whatever it may be. I have to make sure I do not get picked off.
Now, Matt Carpenter announced as the pinch hitter, and Mattingly's going to make another move here. So he'll dip to the bullpen once again. Cardinals once again have a runner at first base, but it's not Tyler Green. Now look at Don Mattingly getting into it a bit with Jeff Kellogg. He is really letting the home plate umpire have it. And he's out. That's it for Mattingly. He has been tossed out of the game by Jeff Kellogg. And now Mattingly is going to get something. Home plate umpire Kellogg has heard enough. It's either the last pitch to Schumacher or this goes back to Harang, who didn't get a call in a key spot earlier tonight when he was on the mound. But Don Mattingly is furious. He has been ejected here in the 10th inning. His anger certainly directed at Jeff Kellogg. So a pitching change here. Let's go back to the pitch to Schumacher that apparently got Mattingly so upset. It's his 5th ejection of the year, by the way.
I think that was a borderline pitch there down in the zone. I think it caught a lot of the plate.
But if you couple that with the pitch to Furcal,
I think that's exactly why he's upset.
You put those two together, and Mattingly feels like he has been treated poorly tonight by the home plate umpire Kellogg.
I think he was also surprised he got tossed because he was talking to him and he wasn't looking at him when he was talking to him. He was, trying to be very professional. He was in that huddle with his team and making a point to the umpire, and then got tossed.
So Randy Choke comes out of the bullpen. Showed no wins, no losses or saves, but a 2.49 earned run average in 44 games with the Miami Marlins. He was acquired in the same trade that just brought Hanley Ramirez from the Marlins to the Dodgers. Been very tough against left-handers, limiting them to a 150 batting average. And Carpenter, who was announced as the pinch hitter, a left-handed batter, is hitting .281.
Well, here's an opportunity to see if these trades can make an impact on the first day. We already saw Hanley Ramirez. He's involved with both those runs that are on the board for the Dodgers. Now Choate coming in the ball game, trying to hold this into a tie ball game.
Schumacher at first base. Rafael Furcal on deck, the former Dodger. They're tied up 2-2 in the bottom of the 10th. The Cardinals certainly the team getting the chances here over the last couple of innings. Going back to the 8th. And that's going to sink in there for a strike. The breaking ball 0-1. The Dodgers have out-hit the Cardinals 8-3. David Freese led off the inning with a base hit. Tyler Green came on to run for him, and then he was picked off at first base. Swung on and missed. Kind of a lazy cut by Carpenter. And it's 0-2. And Schumacher took ball 4. Don Mattingly came out to make a pitching change. And clearly what he really wanted to do is get in the face of Jeff Kellogg, the home plate umpire, for a couple of close calls. And Kellogg tossed him out of the game. 1 out, 1 on. 2 strikes on Carpenter. Swing and a foul tip. Did he hang on? Yes, he did. That's a strikeout. Carpenter thought it hit the ground. Home plate umpire Kellogg said that Ellis hung on to it. And so that is a strikeout. And there are 2 away. I think he wasn't exactly sure what transpired there, but it's a strikeout. Boy, it looked like some dirt kicked up there.
It did look like some dirt kicked up there. And they weren't questioning whether he fouled that ball off. It looked like it might have hit some dirt before he caught that ball, so it would have been a foul ball. They have a legit argument there.
Well, here's Furcal. 0 for 3 with a walk tonight, and he takes strike 1 on the outside edge. Schumacher aboard at first base. If he scores, the Cardinals win it. Dodgers trying to get it to 11. The left-hander with the 0-1 pitch. 1-1. Furcal, a member of the Dodgers from 2006 through 2011. He was named to an all-star team as a Dodger in 2010. Coming off an all-star appearance with St. Louis. Furcal also with a little bit of power for little guys. Hit 5 home runs. Switch hitter. John Jay on deck for the Cardinals. Ground ball, third base. Ramirez into second for the force, and that retires the side. So the Dodgers hold. Don Mattingly tossed out of the ball game. And we go to the 11th inning, still tied 2-2 in St. Louis.
Hi, Linda Cohn, Stuart Scott. Sports Center coming up after the game. Why A-Rod's injury won't cause panic in the Bronx, and Steven Strasburg, he sweeps away the Mets with 11 Ks.
Plus, Dwight Howard rejects the Magic yet again. It's all coming up following Dodgers Cardinals on ESPN. Guys, get this game over with, all right?
Please.
Doing we can, gang. It's a 2-2 tie. We're going to the 11th inning. A couple of changes here for St. Louis. Carpenter stays in the game to play third base. And Fernando Salas is the new pitcher. He is 0-3 with an ERA over 4.5.
And he's going to come at you with that fastball, slider, split finger. That fastball has a nice sink down in the zone. Got that short break with that slider and a good sharp split finger.
He'll get Mark Ellis to start it off in the 11th. Ellis, the second baseman, 1 for 4 with a double. He scored one of the 2 runs in the 6th. 8 hits for LA. Not many for them, but only 3 for St. Louis in the game. The Dodgers, number 23 in the majors in batting average. They hit .232. 25th in OPS. Hammered foul. Matt Kemp and Andre Ethier were the only Dodgers with more than 7 home runs before they traded for Hanley Ramirez. LA with just 60 home runs. That's dead last in the majors. Point of reference there, coming into play today, the Yankees had hit 152 home runs. Fouled off by Ellis. Hanley Ramirez with a triple and a single in his Dodger debut tonight, so he's done just fine.
And the Dodgers were able to score the last time Mark Ellis led off the inning, because he led off with a double. Looking for him to try to get on base any way he can. Salas likes to come up with a fastball or put you away with that slider.
1-2 on Ellis. Matt Kemp on deck, and then Andre Ethier. And perhaps once again Hanley Ramirez. The 1-2 to Ellis. High bounder to third. Carpenter with a chance. Guns to get him. 1 away in the 11th inning. That'll send up Matt Kemp. He's had a very quiet night with the bat. He's grounded to second, struck out again, and flied routinely to center. The Dodgers are 12 games over 500 when Kemp is in the lineup.
And he's always a threat. Even though there's nobody on, it seems like there's a guy in scoring position when he comes up to the plate. He just missed his last at bat. He flew out to center field, but he just missed that ball. He just got under it just a hair.
Checks a swing and a pitch inside. First base ump said no swing. Marty Foster. Kemp was certainly the early season favorite to win the National League MVP. Got off to such a torrid start before the hamstring injury. Swings and loops that one foul off first base. 1 ball, 1 strike. We'd have to say right now that Andrew McCutchen of the Pittsburgh Pirates is one of the favorites to win it. Hitting .370. Ryan Braun with 27 home runs. That is a strike on the outside corner. 1-2 on Kemp. Andre Ethier to hit next. Nobody on base, 1 away. Dodgers locked up in a 2-2 tie with St. Louis. Swing and a miss, and down he goes. He's had a rough night. That's his 3rd strikeout. 2 down in the 11th.
Once again, they go with that breaking ball down in the dirt. This is where they've gotten the other 2 strikeouts prior to this at bat. on Matt Kemp is a breaking ball down in the dirt.
So Kemp 0 for 5. And here's Ethier. He's 1 for 4 with a double way back in the 4th inning. This game has been tied since the 6th at 2. And a ball up high on Ethier. Ethier, a very good defender. Made a nice running catch in foul territory tonight. Long running play over near the stands. He won his first Gold Glove last year. Two and 0. Ethier 11 home runs this year. Had 31 back in 09 when he drove in 106 runs. So he can drive the ball to 2-0. That'll miss for ball 3. So on the verge of a walk in front of that man, Hanley Ramirez, making his Dodger debut here tonight. Just traded from the Miami Marlins.
I mean, I'm giving Ethier the green light. If he feels the ball he can drive, I'd let him swing.
He does not. Now 3-1.
You know, and Salas took something off of that pitch. I think he was thinking the same thing, that here's a guy with some power, can knock the ball out of the park, that he might be swinging 3-0.
That pitch came in at 83. Swinging a fly ball center field, charging in Jay. Long run. Here he comes, and he slides to make the play. A nifty grab by John Jay. Also an excellent defensive outfielder. 1, 2, 3 they go, but it took a really nice effort by Jay to time that sliding catch perfectly. To the bottom of the 11th, tied at 2.
In our studios, John Kruk, Karl Ravech, and a 3-2 game when Drew Stubbs against Houston with a couple men on, John, delivers the 2 he needs to.
Great sign for Dusty Baker. Stubbs coming through in the clutch.
And then, of course, Aroldis Chapman comes on and picks up a save. So that news reverberates through Pittsburgh and other NL Central towns as the Reds continue to keep pace. Pirates win today, so do the Reds. The final score 5-3. Take a look at some other scores. The Nats beat the Mets. Strasburg was great. The Phillies come back again to beat the Brewers, and the Padres beat Lincecum and the Giants by a score of 6-3. There is a baseball tonight scheduled at midnight on ESPN2, and Linda and Stu standing by with SportsCenter.
Well, guys, thank you very much. Wednesday Night Baseball continues as we play on to the last half of the 11th inning. Nomar Garciaparra, Dave O'Brien, Tim Kirkchin with you. Randy Choate pitching into his second frame now. He'll get Jay, Holiday, and Beltran in a 2-2 game. Boy, how about those Cincinnati Reds? They continue to win 7 in a row. That's already been posted, of course, here at Busch Stadium, so the Cardinals know they will gain no ground in the division on this night. No matter what happens here, Jay leading off. He is 0 for 3. Indicating a bunt, takes a ball outside. He has taken ball 4. That was in the 8th inning when 3 Cardinals walked. With 1 man out, they loaded the bases. And then Matt Holliday scorched a line drive that Ellis caught out near second base and doubled for call off the bag. He had been ranging toward third, thinking that ball was through. And it looked like it was at the crack of the bat. Double play ended that threat. 2-0.
Well, John Jay's last at bat, he squared around as well just to kind of show bunt, and he ended up working a walk.
And right through there for a called strike on Jay. Not a home run threat. He has but 2. Holiday looking for another chance. He's on deck. High bounding ball to the second baseman, and Ellis will throw on to get him. Let's go back to that 8th inning swing, and Matt Holliday, bases loaded, 1 out.
Well, this is tough for a hitter because you're thinking, I got a sinker ball on the mound. I'm looking for that ball up in the zone. Guys in scoring position to really make a big run for our team. And you square the ball up. You hit a line drive. Mark Ellis playing him perfectly to come up with the catch and the double play. That's what's tough about this game. You can do everything right and still make an out.
Trey Hillman making a pitching change, takes it away from Choate. And they'll bring on a right-hander to face Matt Holliday, and we'll be back with more in just a moment from St. Louis, tied up 2-2, the Cardinals and the Dodgers. Extra innings here in St. Louis, tied 2-2, 1 out, bottom of the 11th inning, and that's Jamie Wright, who comes on at 4-2 with a .463 earned run average, and he becomes the 5th Dodger reliever, but the first brought into the game officially by someone other than Don Mattingly, who's been ejected.
He gets ejected, but Jamie Wright comes at you with a low 90s fastball, has a cutter, curveball. Against righties, he likes to sink that fastball, go away with that cutter, and he uses that curveball as his out pitch to both righties and lefties.
Well, you know, Matt Holliday is going to think about trying to end this thing with one swing. On the night, 0 for 3 with a walk. Hit into that double play we showed you in the 8th inning with the bases loaded. Ground ball right side, base hit. A 1-out single going after the very first pitch and right through for a single.
Well, he went after the first pitch his last at bat and hit a rocket to second base, and goes after the first pitch on this one. You talked about with one swing he can end this game and hit out of the ballpark, but he goes the other way with that ball. The ball was tailing away on the outer half of the plate, and he stays with it and goes to right field for a nice single.
So it sends up Carlos Beltran, hitless tonight, 0 for 4. He has struck out twice. His last 2 at-bats have ended in a K. One man gone, and Wright over to first base.
And I was impressed with Holliday in that at-bat because you know he's so big and strong, and he can end the game with one swing. He just knows I have to get on base and takes his hit the other way, recognizing what a potent lineup he has and the guys hitting behind him. Just need one run to win this game.
That missed. Holliday runs all right for a man of his size. He has 4 stolen bases. Wes Beltran has hit 22 home runs. Carlos with a 6-game hitting streak, 1 for 10 against Wright.
And look how far, how deep those outfielders are playing no doubles.
1-0, little ground ball right side, corralled by Loney, and the Cruz got the out there. They get the lead man, and that's it. Beltran becomes the runner at first base, so 2 down. He does not hit it hard.
Good job by Loney ranging to his right, coming up with it and making sure of one right here. And also good job by Cruz not to force anything, taking that one out and making sure you get that lead runner so he's not in the scoring position.
Alan Craig will be the batter. He also has gone hitless. In this game, the Cardinals, and mind you, we're in the 11th inning now, have 4 total hits. Craig has struck out, fly to center, and grounded to third, but he has walked and scored one of the 2 Cardinal runs way back in the 2nd inning. The Cardinals getting many more late game chances than the Dodgers, but they're not cashing in. Craig with a ground ball right at the shortstop Cruz, and that will retire the side. 1 man left. That's 11. We play on to the 12th inning here at Busch Stadium, St. Louis. Dodgers and Cardinals in a 2-2 tie. So we play late into the night here in St. Louis. Most of the fans still hanging around, but a 2-2 tie In a low hit game, Salas will remain on to pitch. And the first man he'll face here in the 12th inning will be Hanley Ramirez, the brand new Dodger. Okay, we got it all. We had to stay for the very last note of the saxophone. Hanley tonight, a triple, a single, a fly to left, and a grounder back to the pitcher. But he's left a mark his first night in Dodger blue.
In extra innings right now, he really wants to leave a mark. He's thinking, gosh, I can really endear myself to these fans in my new club if I can try to hit one out. But right now, he's a leadoff batter in this inning. Just try to get on.
Yeah, those fans in Los Angeles certainly. The pitch down low for ball one. He tripled on the very first pitch that he saw as a Dodger tonight. And he thought he had a home run. He was into the home run pose and the home run trot and struck the wall on the fly out there in center field. But he would come in to score on a sacrifice fly. And here he takes a ball inside, 2-0. So it's Ramirez, Loney, and Cruz due up in the 12th for the Dodgers. Don Mattingly has been tossed out by Jeff Kellogg. 5th ejection of the year for Don. And a ball inside to make it 3-0.
Well, Hanley Ramirez is another guy that I'm letting swing 3-0 if he gets that pitch, if he gets that ball that he feels he can handle and drive out of the park because of the power that he has.
He's walked 37 times this season. He does green light and he loops a foul back out of play. He was ready.
Gets that ball in the inner half, and that's what you want. Even if you swing, the worst thing is where you put that, you miss hit, and you put it in play. You're like, all right, I fouled it up. I'm still alive. I took a big hack. Now he knows that I'm going to take a big hack. I'm still in a hitter's count 3-1.
Pounded in there at 92, 3-2.
That was a good pitch by Salas going on the outer half of the plate. He came on the inner half and he swung on that 3-0 pitch, goes on the outer half and gets a strike.
So the payoff pitch to Hanley. Up high, and he walked him. So the Dodgers have the leadoff man on in the 12th inning. And very good speed.
Good at bat by Hanley. You know, working the count to 3-0. Like I said, as leadoff hitter, trying to get on. Lets it fly on a 3-0 pitch. Fouls it off. Takes the 3-1 and a good pitch by the pitcher and still work the walk. Like you said, you have now you have speed on the bases, and Hanley Ramirez, who has 14 stolen bases on the year. Now it's up to James Loney to try to get him into scoring position.
It is 14 stolen bases for Hanley, but that's also Yadier Molina behind the plate. So we'll see if he's running here. Loney's gone 0 for 3, but he's driven in a run with a sacrifice. And he cuts right through the first one for strike one. Only been caught 4 times this season. He wound up number 2 in Marlins history in stolen bases. At the time of the trade, Salas being very deliberate with a man on, nobody out. And loop foul out of play by Loney. So now he's in a hole, 0-2. The Dodgers struck first tonight in the 2nd inning when Ramirez tripled and Loney brought him in with a sacrifice. Cardinals tied it in the bottom of the 2nd inning. And St. Louis went ahead 2-1 in the 5th. Dodgers tied it in the 6th inning, and we have been dead even ever since. Now into inning number 12. Ramirez has not taken off yet. He's holding. And it swung on and missed, and down goes Loney. Not a good at bat at all.
There was a hole over there with a man on first base. You have that hole between second and first. As a left-handed hitter, you're trying to get that ball maybe to hook in that hole to get that guy in scoring position. You know, you see a breaking ball down in the dirt that he goes after. The other thing is you don't have confidence in a guy like Loney, who doesn't bunt a whole lot, that he's not, so you can't put on the sacrifice bunt to move the guy over, so you have to let him swing, and he ends up striking out.
Brings up Cruz, the shortstop, 1 for 4. He had a base hit in the 7th. He's made contact all 4 times. And he slices a foul back to the screen for strike 1 on a 93-mile-an-hour fastball. Originally, 37,841 our paid crowd tonight. It was 102 degrees here in St. Louis when the game started. Hanley Ramirez on at first base for LA. Salas accepting a sign. Here comes the 0-1. Count evens at 1 ball and 1 strike. These two teams are going to have to turn around and play again tomorrow at 12:45 in the afternoon to finish up this series. 4-game series here.
That seems to always happen as a player. You're going, okay, we got an early one tomorrow, not your 12, and you go into extra innings the night before.
And he misses again. Now 2-1.
The 2 times you get those extra innings is when you know you have to be up early for the game tomorrow, or you have that getaway day and you have a long trip somewhere and play the next day. It always seems to go into extra innings.
Ramirez still there at first base with 1 man out. Runner goes, and it swung on and blooped foul on a play to the right. Kind of a stutter step, and then Hanley took off. 2-2.
It almost looked like a slight delay steal by Hanley Ramirez. And watch it again. It looks like he's going to just get that secondary and then take off.
That was the first move he's made towards second base since he reached. And never attempted a steal all through the strikeout of James Loney. He's holding now, and it's cut on and missed. Down goes Cruz hacking. Back-to-back strikeouts by Salas.
Well, Salas gets Loney on a breaking ball in the dirt, and he just comes after you with that high fastball against Cruz. Those are the 2 spots he tries to put hitters away. Up in the zone with that fastball, and then that breaking ball down in the dirt.
So now the catcher, A.J. Ellis, 1 for 4. He's ripped a double. He's also hit into a double play, struck out, and rolled over to short. Hanley back in at first. Now Ellis is a very good contact hitter. Would Ramirez be taking off here? There are 2 out. Salas very, very slow with his delivery. Runner holding and in for a strike. So 0-1 on A.J. Ellis.
And Hanley Ramirez, you just saw that 1 delay steal attempt. You would think that he might try to get in that scoring position somehow, but another factor in it is that you do have Yadier Molina behind home plate. The respect you give him.
Yep, there's your stop sign. Foul back, 0-2. So Salas is 1 strike away from striking out the side after the leadoff walk of Ramirez. Ellis has hit 7 home runs, batting .278. And here comes the 0-2. Check swing and a foul back, and Ellis hangs in there. Well, the crowd very much wants Salas to strike out the side here. Another throw over and scampering back in safely, Hanley Ramirez. The Cardinals had a man picked off in extra innings. In the 10th inning, Tyler Green came on to run for David Freese, who led off the 10th with a base hit, and then Green was picked off. Play that was not close at first. Here's the 0-2. 1 ball and 2 strikes on Ellis.
Well, there's that pitch up in the zone, that fastball that he was able to get Cruz swinging on the at bat before. Well, let's see if he goes down to that slider down in the yard that he was able to get Loney swinging on.
Boy, Ramirez has really been deterred with Molina back there. Only 1 time since leading off the inning taking that walk as he attempted to run. Four-time Gold Glover with a great arm will do that. Now the 1-2 runner staying put, swinging a deep drive, but he hooked it foul down the left field line. So Ellis put a real good swing on it, but he yanked it foul. Top of the 12th inning, and 2 men out for the Dodgers. Salas ready with another 1-2 pitch. Swing a liner down the right field line, and a foul ball. Well, for just a split second, the Dodgers were oh so hopeful that Hanley has to return to first.
I mean, A.J. Ellis up there battling. Got an 0-2, fell behind, pulled the breaking ball foul down the left field line, and just missed foul down the right field line on a fastball away.
The 1-2 once more, and again he spoils it. Got an 80-mile-an-hour off-speed pitch there and just flicked it foul. Ramirez at first base, representing the go-ahead run for the Dodgers, who have not led since the 2nd inning. Still 1-2.
You know, Salas is making some good pitches on Ellis. Good breaking balls, good fastballs on the outer half, catching the corners, and Ellis doing a good job fighting off those tough pitches and staying alive.
Well, the 9th pitch of the at bat is coming up. Ramirez again digs out a lead at first. 2 down. Swing a shot to center field, racing back Jay, but he has room. He's there and makes the catch. The side is retired, so Salas wins that battle. Ramirez stranded at first base. We go to the bottom of the 12th, 2-2, all tied on a Wednesday night. Locked up 2-2, bottom half of the 12th inning coming your way, and we'll see what's up with the Cardinals. Who steps up to hit? Let's go to Tim.
Yes, Lance Berkman is out on the on-deck circle right now. I just motioned to him the last half inning. Is he capable of hitting? And he gave me that look like, yeah, I can give it a try. Remember, he got hit on the knee last night with a pitch, the same knee that he got surgically repaired. And Mike Matheny told me before the game, we need to give him a couple of days. But that meant a couple of days in the field so he can get off his feet. But given that they're running out of players here, Berkman looks like he's going to be ready to take a swing.
Here's what happened last night. He got drilled on that knee by Clayton Kershaw, breaking ball, the same knee that he had surgically repaired. Tried to stay in the ball game. Eventually he had to come out. I can tell you, one of the reasons he feels like he could hit now, his numbers against Jamie Wright are off the charts. The pitcher he will likely face. Look at this. 14 for 24, 3 home runs. You would run to the plate.
If you have those numbers, when you feel that good or you see the pitch that well off a certain pitcher.
No matter what your knee feels like, it could be throbbing, but you're getting a bat when you hit a guy that well. But first it'll be Yadier Molina. He's gone 1 for 4 with a second inning single, leading off the last of the 12th for St. Louis. And he loops a foul for strike 1. Lance Berkman on deck. Molina hitting .304 with the 15 home runs, a career high.
We talked about Molina's the year he's having offensively, but no matter if he's having a down year offense, he always has that clutch hit, comes in that clutch situation. And right now, here's an opportunity for him once again to come up with the clutch hit. Just needs to get on base as that leadoff guy in the inning.
Right with a 1-1 pitch. Ground ball to the shortstop. Cruz handles that and gets him easily. 1 man out. And so now Berkman, he'll be introduced to the crowd, his first at bat tonight. A reminder that SportsCenter is coming up as soon as we finish up here in St. Louis. That is next. And again, Berkman, incredible numbers off this pitcher, right? 14 for 24, a .583 career average with 3 home runs.
Starts him off with a good breaking ball right there, especially in a fastball location. That ball dropping out of the zone. Coming into pinch hit, you're looking to be aggressive, thinking you're going to get that fastball early in the count.
You go 1 fastball, 1-1. Schumacher to hit next. One and 2. Those first couple of swings, he looks overmatched by Jamie Wright.
Looked like he might have hobbled just a little bit after that second swing he took.
So that knee may well be barking at him still. The 1-2. Check swing. No offer, says DJ Rayburn.
Yeah, he's definitely favoring that front knee, that right knee. And understandably, I mean, that ball got him good yesterday.
One man out, the bottom of the 12th inning, 2-2. Cardinals have only managed 4 hits all night. Three and 2. Berkman's 1 home run on the year came on this side of the plate, hitting left-handed. And the 3-2 pitch. Swing, little blooper foul. He just got a piece of it.
Well, he's having a good at-bat work, though. Count back to 3-2. The interesting thing with the way that knee feels, he does get on base. Let's say he works a walk. If he's going to keep staying there to run, or maybe they might have a pitcher or somebody else pinch run for him. That way you don't have to use 2 position players in this spot.
The payoff to Berkman. And he did walk him up high for ball 4. So he has a fine at bat. Jogs up to first base, and they will bring on a runner for him.
Well, he starts him off with a good breaking ball because you're looking for that fastball as a pinch hitter. Then he comes in with the cutter off the plate. Then that fastball on the inner half, takes a swing at it, and then he lays off the fastball up in the zone, lays off that breaking ball away, fouls off a tough pitch, stays alive, stays off that high fastball, and works the walk. Gets down to first base, comes out, sits down, and now you have a pinch runner.
That's a pitcher, Joe Kelly, who will run for him. Kelly, a right-hander. Last time they brought on a pinch runner, he got picked off. That was Tyler Green. Here's Schumacher. And he takes strike 1. 1 out, 1 on. And once again, it's the Cardinals getting the chances. Going back to the 8th inning now, they've had 7 base runners, but have failed to score. Schumacher with a good eyes. Walked twice tonight. It's 0 for 2. White trying to catch Kelly sleeping over there at first base. Not used to running the bases. One strike on Schumacher. One and one. The 8th inning, the Cardinals loaded up the bases with 1 out. They couldn't score. They had 2 base runners in the 10th and failed to score. Got a hit in the 11th from Matt Holliday, but couldn't score. And now a walk with 1 out in the 12th. One is in there for a called strike, and now Schumacher's behind in the count, 1 and 2. Dodgers making a big splash today in trading for Hanley Ramirez, who did show up in time for the game and has tripled and singled. He's also taken a walk in this game. He's driven in a run. But how will it end for him in his Dodger first night? 1-2 home. Oh, he waved at it and he struck out. Down he goes. Schumacher with an ugly swing. Really got himself out there.
Yeah, I think he had the pitch before in his mind. He knew, he goes, that was a pitch that he took. He wanted to swing at that one. And here's the one, because that you're thinking that might have been the same pitch and it breaks out of the zone and you just swing at it and you're mad at yourself. I mean, as a hitter in that situation, obviously you're going, man, it's late in the innings. I have a guy on base. I just want to keep this inning alive. Trying to get that base hit, move him over into scoring position.
Now here's Matt Carpenter. Another throw over to first base, and back in is Kelly. Carpenter batting out of the 9 spot and took over at third when Freese came out. Don Mattingly has not been managing the Dodgers, at least in an official capacity, for the last several innings. He was thrown out by home plate umpire Jeff Kellogg. Trey Hillman's had the club. I'm sure Don's decisions are not too far off in the distance. 1-0 pitch he's taking, and that missed. Now 2-0 on Carpenter.
Well, this is the count you want to be in as a hitter. I'm thinking, okay, I got 2-0. I want to drive this ball. I want to get that ball. I can drive in the gap. Hopefully get that ball in the gap that I can score the guy from first base.
And that would win it for St. Louis. Chopper, but a foul. Colorado and Arizona, they're going to the 9th inning. That's the only other game in the majors going on right now other than this one. And all the scores and highlights from a busy day in the majors coming up on SportsCenter, which follows us. Here's the 2-1. Now 3-1 on Carpenter. for a call on deck.
Here's that same situation, just like you were 2-0, looking for that one ball that you can drive.
Good count to swing if it's in there. Here comes the 3-1. He's taking instead, and that's a strike. 3-2.
That ball looked like it might have fallen out of the zone, but he gets the call. Jimmy Wright gets the call on this one. It looks like it starts off in the zone. It might have fallen off just a little bit, but 3-2. Now, this 3-2 count does benefit the Cardinals right now because you'll have the guy in motion over there at first base. So that ball in the gap definitely is a potential for the guy scoring from there.
That's the pitcher Kelly, who doesn't run very much. He takes off, swinging a line shot into center field for a base hit. Oh, Kelly trips around second. He has to retreat to the bag. Well, that's a pitcher running the bases for you. He takes a nasty tumble. He should be at third.
Well, it looked like he might have missed the bag at first when he was rounding it. Gets a good jump here. Looking at the ball. Yeah, he just stepped right over the bag and fell. It might have helped him that he did fall down so he can go back, because he definitely missed the bag completely, rather than continuing on to third base and having an easy appeal at second base.
So a base hit for Carpenter. The Cardinals have runners at first and second, and Rafael Furcal has an opportunity to win it, assuming Kelly can stay on his feet. Chatting up Jose Oquendo, the third base coach. Well, the Dodgers met on the hill. 2 men out, but 2 men on. Furcal has gone hitless tonight. He's 0 for 4 with a walk. And the All-Star with an opportunity to put it away for St. Louis here in the 12th inning. He checks his swing, and the pitch inside. They appeal, no swing.
And I look at the outfielders right now. I mean, they're not really close when you're thinking, hey, that's a go-ahead run at second base. I don't know if they're thinking maybe I can throw out the pitcher running, you know, from this distance. But usually they might creep in just a little more to make sure they can throw them out.
The 1-0. He's taking again. 2 balls, no strikes. John Jay on deck, a lefty hitter. Kelly representing the winning run at second base. The 2-0 for Furcal. Swinging a line drive, base hit into left. Gwynn charges. Kelly rounding third, and Gwynn overran it, and the ball game is over. Kelly scores, and in 12 innings, the Cardinals pull it out 3-2. They thought there might be a play at the plate, but Gwynn was never able to pick it up and gun home, and the ball game ends on a single by Rafael Furcal. 3-2 the final.
Well, Rafael Furcal coming up with another big RBI from that leadoff spot. He's one of those guys that come up big in the clutch. He gets a pitch he can handle, is in a hitter's count, gets that base hit. And we know that's a pitcher running over there from second base. But Gwynn charging, and he scores easily.
And a celebration for the St. Louis Cardinals. A sour note in the debut for the Dodgers of Hanley Ramirez. In 12 innings, the Cardinals come out on top 3-2. Sports Center is coming your way next. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. Along with Nomar Garciaparra, Tim Kirkshin, and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Dave O'Brien. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. A long night and a hot night, and the Cardinals now take a 2-1 lead in the series. 3-2 in 12. The Cardinals come out on top. We say goodnight from St. Louis, and thanks so much for watching. Now it's time for Sports Center. Good night, everybody.